Hey Dan. Hello, hello. Welcome, welcome. How are you guys doing? Congratulations, Doctor KHG, for your son. Hello, hello. Sounds good, Dan. Ark is a great game to play while you put this on a background. Got a lot of things to say. Hey, Norberto. Tommy, not too bad, not too bad. How you doing? Hello, DFN on Twitch. Good evening, Dave the Perv. Good to have you here, guys. Good to have you here. Let's have a look. Thank you, Marcus. Hello to you. Nerfy Moist Destroyer. What a name. How you doing? Hey, Thunderwing. So good to have you here. How you guys doing? Almost 1 million views in 2 weeks. Holy moly. Okay, so welcome, noble ones. If anyone wanted to know, the music that I usually use for these topics at the beginning is from Soma, this wonderful video game that I have finished and played on Twitch, and you've got a full playthrough 7 hours long on my gaming channel Metatron's Protectorate. Regardless of that, we've got a lot of tabs to work with today, and I just want to say thank you so much for being here, of course. One of the things that I would like to do, first and foremost, is that, of course, regardless of what you believe when it comes to ancient Egypt, but in general, anything, if you are, whether you be a subscriber to the ancient astronaut theory, or whether you be a subscriber to all sorts of alternative theories, or whether you be someone who's like, no, I just need the facts, I want the archaeology, and I believe anything archaeology says, everyone is welcome here today. And one thing that is going to be a priority for me when it comes to discussing any topics of such as this one is to make sure that you know that I'm here to try and present the most unbiased presentation that I can. Of course, I'm sharing my opinions on the topic, but I'm happy to listen to yours if you want to share what you think about these things. But in general, you will know, I will try to be, I know I'm a little condescending sometimes, but I'll try not to be. Okay, so I'm not here to shame anyone, so feel free to openly discuss and share your views on these topics. I'm not here to try and shame you for it in any way, shape, or form. Also because, let's be honest, as we read the title, Discussing the Pyramids and the Zahi Hawass podcast, this is clearly from Joe Rogan clips, so this is just a small clip where, as they were talking about Zahi Hawass, which is absolutely something that I do want to listen to, it's not necessarily in this clip, but in the entirety, in the full episode from Joe Rogan Experience, they were talking about Zahi Hawass after, as you know, he was a guest. We will watch that later. But we will begin by watching this clip as we start reviewing this, because in this clip, well, the guest that Joe Rogan had brought up, I think either the guest or Joe Rogan, actually right now don't remember, one of the two brought up these symbols, these hieroglyphs. I think it was the guest. And to be fair, I'll give you the historical background of these. I've looked into them, and I'll be honest with you. As you know, I am not convinced by the ancient astronaut theory. I'm not convinced, and I'll tell you what it is, I'll give you the definition. I'm not convinced by this idea that aliens have visited us and that they built civilization, that the aliens built the pyramids, that the aliens used advanced technology. I'm not convinced by it, but I am fascinated by it. So I absolutely understand why some people absolutely love this kind of stuff, and I do. But when you do look at this, and you look at these hieroglyphs specifically, we'll open and look at the cartouche. We'll try to find the best resolution possible. I have to be honest. It really does look like these are machines, like modern machines. They do. So like, on one hand, I'm not happy when people pretend that they know more than they do and they make a profit off of it. Then that's a scam and it's a fraud. But I'm also not happy when archaeologists sometimes, I don't want to say archaeologists, I'm not trying to put everyone into one basket. One of my team members is an archaeologist, so it's not like I don't work with archaeologists. But sometimes some people in academia, they do make it sound like it's unbelievable to even look at these images and see something modern. And I've got to be honest, they do look like modern machines. Let's be honest about it. That doesn't mean that they were ancient machines, modern ancient machines, of course, but also the idea of, kind of trying to point the finger and laugh or try to be like, oh my gosh, I have to speak about this. Like that kind of attitude. I mean, let's be honest, the one at the bottom there looks absolutely like a spaceship. Do I believe it was a spaceship? No, but it looks like it. We gotta be honest about it. And I think that would really help if we at least were honest in understanding where the people that do subscribe to the possibility, which I cannot falsify, by the way, to the possibility that we were, in fact, visited in the past. Who knows? Maybe. Like, that's all I can say about it. And then they see this and they can start like to having their imagination fly. But today we're going to look at the context, because perhaps you are familiar with this. Perhaps you're familiar with this. But do you know where they're found? Do you know what period they were built? Do you know who wrote this? Do you know where this cartouche is found? Like, if you don't, then today might be an interesting episode. And as always, I'm not here to tell you what to believe. I'm here to tell you this is the information I've gathered on this as I was preparing for this live stream. But you use your mind, use your critical thinking, and come to your own conclusion, not because this is the repertoire of all knowledge, but simply because I might present something that perhaps you didn't know, and then you can connect it with something you did know already that perhaps I don't, and then you can formulate your own opinion and be like, you know what, I think that's a freaking helicopter, or no, I think that's not a helicopter, but then what is it? And that's what we are hoping to be able to address today. Fascinating topic, however. I love this stuff. I absolutely love this stuff. All right, so let's have a look what we've got. We've got Craig, hello. Why are you using Joe Rogan as a starting point? What academic ever would do this? Well, that's the problem, Craig. I respect you, and I have no problem, but I have to disagree with you. I think any human being is able to present an opinion. In this clip specifically, Joe is not even pushing that this is a helicopter. He does just recognize, gosh, that does look like a helicopter. And if it's not a helicopter, what a coincidence, to quote him. So, yeah, I mean, anyone can present an opinion. And the idea that only academics can speak, I know that's not what you're saying. I'm not trying to put you a straw man. But I think Joe Rogan is a good starting point, because 1 million views in 2 weeks, my friend. 1 million views in 2 weeks. So if I just go with the typical attitude of academia, which is we know it all, you shut up and listen, no one is going to listen. That's what happens. As an educator, I'm more interested in people being willing to listen. So I'm using Joe Rogan in this situation because 1 million views on the clips. The original probably several millions at this point. We'll check. And they spoke about it. A lot of people were exposed to it. And so I think it's important to have a look at it, see what actual professional archaeology gives as an answer to this, and then we discuss it. That's pretty much the idea. But thank you for sharing your opinion, of course. Thank you, The Ghost, for supporting the stream. You should react to the trailer of Medieval Chronicles. It looks amazing. It was just announced. What is it, a video game? Thank you, the ghost. And Dan, good to have you here. It's much more plausible that humanity was more advanced in the past and some event took us back to square one. It is possible. Now, would I say and agree with you that it's more plausible based on the evidence I've seen? No. But I can't completely falsify it because I don't know. So were we more advanced? We'll have to, maybe, but personally, I don't subscribe to that idea as of now. But obviously, if something gets unearthed and it dates with radiocarbon dating that Mr. Zahi Hawass, by the way, one of the main representatives of mainstream academic archaeology, and yet he doesn't even believe in carbon dating, so there is that. But if we were to carbon date something that they uncover or discover, and it's tech, meaning modern tech, equally to us, or 100 years in the past, or maybe hundreds of years in the future, then at that point, I'm going to be like, guys, we got to rewrite history now with the evidence. That's how you rewrite history. The difference between the political rewriting of history and the professional rewriting of history is that the professional rewriting of history does it in the presence of new evidence, whereas the political rewriting of history rewrites history hiding the evidence that goes against the message. And that's how it is. Thank you, the ghost. The game is an ambitious, not ambiguous, ambiguous. Could you imagine that? An ambitious medieval open world strategy game set during the 100 Years' War. We'll definitely check it out if we have time later. Yeah. No, not for the manufacts, but I'm talking about the, you know, how oftentimes you find something and then you can carbon date. I know it's connected to organic materials. I'm aware of that, Daniele. I might have misspoke, but I meant like if you manage through carbon dating, but also cultural dating and all the other contextual dating and analysis, if you can date something that has been unearthed to 5,000 years ago, but they've got machines that are powered by electricity, we're going to rewrite everything at that point. We're going to rewrite everything at that point. So, yeah. Yeah, the more advanced also would have to be qualified exactly what is meant, because even when we discuss Hancock, for instance, even when we discuss Hancock, I think he changed his position on what he meant by advanced civilization. And in fact, if Graham Hancock ever comes to the States and he wants to come to my place here, if he is around and we can have a conversation about this, I would interview him. And one of the first things I would ask him to is precisely define what he means when he says advanced and give us perfect examples of tech. Like what century? I know this has been addressed a few times, but usually it's kind of an elusive answer. I would prepare some to-the-point questions in order to correctly frame the statement advanced civilization, because advanced could mean anything. I mean, a medieval civilization in the Iron Age would be advanced, so, or more advanced than we expect, usually. So, yeah. Let's see what we've got. Your son was just born. Very good. Good news, my friend. Okay, let me double check that I've got. Let me see what else you guys say. Thank you, Jamie Whitaker. Yeah, we'll see if we hit the million, because it's so weird with the number of subscribers lately. Kind of want to... Let me see if I can show it, but I have to double check what I'm showing exactly. But it's been very weird with the subscribers. Because what's happening, maybe I can show you. One moment, please. Let me see if I can show it with the analytics. The problem with the analytics is that it's difficult to only show one thing. One moment. Let me see if I can. Yeah, maybe if I click here. No, it still shows stuff that I'd rather not show. So it is what it is. Anyway, you'll have to believe my words. I can't show the screen. Anyways, with subscribers, it's been really weird because... basically, like, I got to 984,040 subscribers, and now I'm back to 983,000. So like 100 plus subscribers disappeared into thin air just yesterday. And it keeps doing that. It keeps doing like editor, it keeps doing that. So I don't know, if it keeps doing this, we'll get stuck in a loop. Hopefully not. So yeah, please subscribe. There you go. Please subscribe if possible so we can break out of the loop. Yeah. And it's just one of those situations, I suppose. And okay, Dan, for instance, is discussing, I never meant more advanced than us, just more advanced than we believe they had. Okay, that's fine. I'm not talking laser beams or nothing. Okay, great. And that's the kind of specification that I would require from quite a few speakers if they ever come here as guests, for instance, because I think language can be, sometimes it can be ambiguous on purpose. A lot of people do it, and it annoys me every single time. So whenever they do, and they're having a conversation with me, I immediately go to, hold on a minute, before we continue, what do you mean by that? And we need to exactly see what we are talking about, right? Because we need to know. Because at least we can't really address a point if the point is not explained well. And of course, I'm not gonna pull a Jordan Peterson on anyone who would be a guest here and starting to ask them, but what do you mean exactly by iron when you say Iron Age? Like, I'm not gonna do that, but I do. There are sometimes some sort of umbrella statements that need to be qualified in order for us to be able to even attack us at any given point during a conversation, debate, and whatnot. Yeah. So it's just one of those situations. Thank you, Swai of the internet. I recommend that you check out Lex Friedman's episode with Ed Barnhart, brilliant archaeologist of Mesoamerican findings, also friends with Hancock. Sure, yeah, I mean, I have thank you. I have reacted to Lex Friedman. I haven't in a while because he often, there are very few times when he has archaeologists and historians, I usually do react, but then oftentimes he's got like scientists and mathematicians and like, what am I going to say? All I would say about that would be, wow, cool. Man, did you hear that? That would be my reaction. So I don't think I can add much, which is why I haven't reacted to him in a while. But if he has had anyone that talks about archaeology or history, or religion, in fact, even history or religion, I'd be more than happy to discuss. Totally. Appreciate that. Tajiz, thank you. Okay. Okay. All right. So, just so you know, now that I've read a little bit, some of your opinions, we'll keep doing this interaction, of course. Now, how are we going to do this? The way we're going to do this is that I would have started by watching this. I cannot do it because Joe Rogan podcast, unfortunately, they automatically copy claim, which would block this. Maybe we could get away with a little bit, but we definitely cannot get away with much of it. So what I'm going to do, we're going to discuss a little bit the information that we have on this. We will review some responses that have been given to him. And after we have gathered all of this, and I prepared a very interesting document, which is this one here, we're going to review a little bit because it's kind of, since we're talking about ancient Egypt, and I've often mentioned this specific study which was carried out by the University of Florence in Italy, and it's a very in-depth study. There is a reason why this happened in Florence, by the way, and because there is a connection to ancient Egypt, and you'll see it. This is a phenomenal study that I strongly recommend. I'll see if I can give you a link to it, and we'll discuss this as well today. So yeah, we'll do that. We've got quite a lot of stuff to discuss, but as I was saying, we're going to review a lot of takes and things on this. We'll try to qualify it, and then at the end of the stream, so when we're getting towards the end of the stream, I'm going to move to Twitch, and we're going to watch Joe Rogan on Twitch so that I know that we're not going to get copy claimed. We're going to do it upside down. But then again, I think it's interesting. It could even be more interesting, particularly if you haven't watched this, to actually watch it together after we have seen what the mainstream archaeology answer to this very puzzling question, because a puzzling question it is. After we have reviewed this, then we can watch what they say, and then we can see if we can, get closer to the truth, if you will. So that's how we're going to do it. Thank you, Robson. I've been watching you since I could barely understand English. Now it's time for the next step. Metacast, we need you interviewing interesting people. 100%. Thank you, by the way, for sticking around for so long and putting up with me. It is happening. I mean, next week, I'm thinking of inviting a couple of people. The week after, I've got already, probably on Monday, I'm going to have a scheduled guest, and we're going to continue to do that. I don't know how often I can have guests because I'm not great at organizing things. But then again, we'll have guests. Totally. Now, the real question is, are these helicopters in Zahi's book? That's the real question. Talking about that, I know it's fair use, Bong Donkey, but unfortunately, when it comes to fair use, you still get copy claimed, and then you need to dispute through fair use, and then you usually win. Regardless, whenever I've disputed, Joe Rogan's team, I don't think it's him, of course, but Joe Rogan's team are usually pretty quick. Within 2 to 3 days, they release the videos. But during a live stream, it still gets struck automatically, and it gets blocked. There's nothing you can do about it. So I noticed it happens with Joe Rogan. It happens with anything that involves, like if we wanted to review a movie, a section, let's say we wanted to watch The Eagle, it's gonna get blocked. Like YouTube and DMCA is insane. So it's just how it is. So yeah, you can dispute using the fair use, particularly here in the United States, and you win every time. Not really during a live stream. That's one of the reasons why the likes of super reactors like Asmongold, he doesn't stream on YouTube because of the DMCA. I still prefer to multi-stream, but then for those sections of the stream that I know might get a copyright claim, I just kind of ask the audience to move over to Twitch just towards the end so that we can do that, and that's how I do it. Yeah. Anyways, let me see. Okay, so let's have a look at the... Let me see if I can find a good picture of the hieroglyphs in questions. So, because I have a lot of tabs, but not this one. All right. Yeah, absolutely. My gosh, that's a lot of stuff. All right, so let's have a look at what we are working with. So, the idea is there are these hieroglyphs. And as you can see, if I can click one of these and we can enlarge it a little bit, I'm going to move myself. You will notice that, to be fair, this one here does look like a helicopter. So like if anyone tells me, oh no, it doesn't look like... I'm happy to consider Pareidolia, by the way. And if you don't know what Pareidolia is, I'll tell you in a second. But for those who do know, yeah, of course, I'm happy to consider Pareidolia as probably the explanation, but it does look like a helicopter, so don't even try to give me the, no, I don't know, Metatron, to me that looks like, no, it looks like a helicopter, it does. Again, the reasons I explained, we'll talk about it, but it does. This one here looks, some people said it looks like a submarine. To me, it looks like a flying tank. You know, when you have sometimes, I don't know if you ever played Command and Conquer Tiberium Wars, and then you play as the aliens, they've got these flying tanks that kind of look like this. So they are like hovering over the ground, and then they move very fast, they're kind of gray. That's what it does look like that to me, rather than a submarine. But then this one, we'll have to decide which one is the craziest looking, by the way. I'm probably going to pull it. But anyway, number 1 is helicopter, number 2 is flying tank, number 3 looks like a freaking, yeah, spaceship / UFO, UAP, whatever nomenclature you want to use. Of course, seen from the side. So this is kind of a profile picture, if you will. And yeah, there we go. So some people have also talked about the image at the bottom here. I personally don't see anything. I've heard people refer to this as an airplane, but to be honest, I've never seen an airplane look like anything like this. I don't know to me this looks like nothing. I guess maybe let's see if you can use your imagination a little bit. Do you think this could be some kind of pod or like a base of operation, and these are like UFOs? This one is about to land, and here is like a little section where you've got the little aliens in here, like the command control tower, if you will. And maybe this one is like a hangar, and this is a defense system. I mean, then again, now that I'm spending more time with it, I've got to say maybe, yes, exactly. Yeah, maybe this could be turned into something as well. Yeah, so anyways, Thunderbird, there you go. So these are the three that we are discussing in this situation. And I think it is fascinating. I mean, anyone who would see this, well, of course, a lot of this stuff has been found in the 1800s, early 1800s, in fact. So for them, this would have looked like nothing. So you do have to take into consideration the mind of the reader. The mind of the reader and the brain that creates the interpretation is, of course, part of this, because it's not like in the 1800s, they would, in 1815, 1818, they could really see much as we do. All right, so let me explain what pareidolia is before we continue with this, and then we see what archaeologists say about this. Pareidolia. So pareidolia is the perception. Let me move myself to the right again, though, because I feel a little lost. There you go. The perception of apparently significant patterns or recognizable images, especially faces, but not limited to, in random or accidental arrangements of shapes and lines. Now, given the second definition here, the second sector of this definition, wouldn't really apply because these are intentional. These are hieroglyphs. With that being said, it could be applied because one of main academia's current interpretation of this explanation is that what you're actually seeing are not complete hieroglyphs, but they are overlapping hieroglyphs in the sense that this was originally something written. I'll tell you what it says, by the way. This is something that was written at one point by Seti I, his artisans, of course, he was paying for. But then he dies, and his son, Ramses, decided to write his own hieroglyphs on top of this, and there is a reason for it. We'll see why these specifically, not maybe other, although this is something that does happen in ancient Egypt. And as he was writing these, you have to imagine that when hieroglyphs are, imagine that they are creating, they decided that there is a section of this structure, and I'll tell you what the structure is, where they are like, we're going to write some hieroglyphs here. They need to prepare the rock. We will read this a little bit today. And they need to plaster it. So they plaster it, they prepare it, and then they start carving these. If you've ever seen how, for example, even ancient Egyptian art is created, and as I say, we'll go a little bit into the details through this study, but in general, you have several artists. An artist will first start by writing in red the for instance, the main, what would you say, silhouettes of what they're going to either draw or write. They do this in red. That's the first priming. And then a different artist will go over these initial markings in black, usually. And then they would start the actual carving when it comes to these. Or if it's art, like we will see in this case, then they start applying the pigments. So that's how you do it. It's kind of a multi-process, and there are several people involved. So what academia is saying, we'll go into the details, but what academia is saying is that these are overlapping hieroglyphs. They can recognize the hieroglyphs that at the initial sections, and then the second ones that have been applied. But unfortunately, due to the poor preservation of this location, and you can kind of see this, the initial cartouche started losing parts of the second layer of the plaster that was applied to cover up the initial hieroglyphs, and therefore, since those get exposed again, then you have this, basically these three. That's how they explain it. So, for our definition, it is not random or accidental in the sense that the hieroglyphs have been purposely written, but the accidental or random aspect of it would be the fact that the losing, the deterioration of the site is what created this coincidence, as the archaeologists define them. Now, I do understand that in our day and age, unfortunately, a lot of professionals have really done a disservice when it comes to academia and have pushed nonsense. And this has happened, by the way, historically. Like, think of the stuff that they were pushing as a proof of that. Think of the stuff that they were pushing under, 1940s Germany. or fascist Italy, and the kind of, specifically in Germany, in fact, and the kind of science that they were pushing when it comes to superiority of certain people and then inferiority of other people and all of that kind of stuff. Well, those were professional and academics of that time. They were basically selling their souls for the regimes that were in power, for politics. They did that. We know it happened. And unfortunately, this is, and again, even today, we often see, although it's a completely different scenario, we often see that academics and some professionals, they will push a message for points, for virtual signaling, for dog whistle, for funding. It happens. Does it mean that we should never trust academics? No, you should always look into what professionals say. But then again, I also understand why some people will hear this explanation and say, I think they're covering it up. That's an UFO. I understand. I do understand. And I wish the professional would stop pushing politics. Because at that point, when you see academic neutrality, and then you see people that are just looking at the facts, then you could start regaining the trust of the public. So that has to be taken into consideration. Okay, so continuing on the situation with pareidolia, let's see. I think the definition here is pretty good, but I'm trying to see, there we go. Is a tendency to see faces or other patterns in random images. Another example of this would be like people that say that they see the face of Jesus in their coffee because of the foam. As a Christian, I don't believe in those. I personally don't believe that the most powerful being in the universe is bound by whether or not you want a macchiato rather than a black coffee in order to be able to communicate with his creatures and creations. I personally don't believe that. So if you believe it, more power to you. I'm just saying what I think. But in general, yeah, that's what pareidolia is. Let's see what Merriam-Webster, just to have a complete definition. The tendency to perceive a specific, often meaningful image, I like how this is meaningful image, in a random or ambiguous visual pattern. Okay? So this is what pareidolia is. The reason pareidolia happens, by the way, whether you believe that this is a case of pareidolia, whether you believe whatever else you want to believe, the reason why it happens is because we are hardwired to recognize faces first, and in general, recognizable patterns second. It's in fact an advantageous trait for our survival, because you have to look at it this way. If you are a prehistoric man in the Stone Age, and you're going around hunting, hunter-gatherers tribe, and then you think you see something in the bushes. Maybe it's kind of dusk, not perfectly illuminated, lots of possible predators and danger all around, and you think you see something. It is objectively better for any organism to be able to see a face where there isn't. Big deal. You thought there was something, it was just a combination of shadows and leaves moving in a certain way as they're blown by the wind, with the branches that made it look like it had arms. Okay, I thought there was something, I got a little startled, I leave the area a little early, not a big deal. Or maybe we go and check, we throw a spear, not a problem. Who cares? But now imagine the opposite scenario, where the same hunter, prehistoric hunter, thinks he sees something in the bushes, but then he's like, no, that's nothing, because he doesn't see it. He does not see, because the face of the actual predator or the enemy from the other tribe or whatever you want, the bear, he doesn't recognize it because he doesn't have his brain that can do that. The problem with that is that then your guard is going to be low, you're going to continue your little foraging, and then you're going to die. So it just makes sense that we tend to see images and patterns that are recognizable to us, particularly faces, and also because, again, we can recognize threats that way. That's how it is. That's why pareidolia is a thing. Now, it's not always that it is a case of pareidolia. Sometimes, yeah, there are images that we recognize and they're real. There are faces that we see and they're real. But a famous case of pareidolia was what happened with the face of Mars, which I think was a situation that occurred due to lack of proper resolution. That's what it looked like, and objectively, it does look like a human face, if anything, which makes it even more fascinating. But then, if you see better resolution pictures, it kind of disappears. So that's pareidolia. That's one of the things that we were going to discuss. Let me see what you guys are saying. Yeah, we're gonna say exactly where this was found. You see a fish tank here. There you go. As you can see, we also differ on what we see. And let me put the hieroglyphs back so we see them. And let me see if I can get. There you go. This guy is wow. And yeah. Okay, cool. Let me see what you guys are saying. Could be a prediction of what tech could become, a science fiction tablet. No, I mean, to be honest, I don't think people could predict that much. I mean, in our own sci-fi of the 50s, for example, and the 60s, people have predicted stuff that actually did happen. But other times we have failed miserably because sometimes it's not easy, and that's not that distance. And, you know, so sometimes this happens and it's kind of funny. Have you ever seen, I kind of want to show you an example of that, but have you ever seen, are you aware of the game Celius for NES? I'm gonna blow your mind because they tried to predict something and I thought it was so funny. Intro. I want to show you something, guys. Yeah, okay, I already found it. So Celius is a video game for NES that it has a great music, by the way. I'm gonna see if I can find. There we go. That's the intro. So Celius is an NES game that was kind of like a Terminator ripoff, if you will, but it was great. Anyways, in this game, we are in the far future. Humans are multiplanetary species already, and it's fascinating. It's very futuristic. There is a war, explosion, nuclear stuff, all of that good stuff. You lose your father, who was some kind of engineer, but before he died, your father put some very crucial information, and then you can go and your whole mission begins and you can visit cosmos and stuff because he shows you this incredible information about this, whatever the heck it was, I don't even remember. And then you visit other planets and there are robots and all of that. But you know what your father used in this futuristic setting to give you that information? A freaking floppy disk, ladies and gentlemen. So I guess people in 1990 thought that even when we had already become a multiplanetary species, we would still use these. So, I mean, it's just, I thought it was hilarious when back in the day though, it's a real floppy here. Back in the day, I guess this made sense because that was the tech they had. And I'm sure that there are things that we're writing now in our sci-fi that we're still thinking like, oh, look at this incredible screen and this keyboard that you just speak and use. And maybe people in 100 years from now are going to be like, screens? Speaking? Seriously? And then maybe everything is neural at that point. Like, you know, it's one of those situations. Or maybe even more. Who knows what tech we're going to have to discuss. So I like that you said maybe this was a prediction of the tech, but to be honest, at that point, I think it makes more sense. Believe it or not, I can't believe I'm actually saying this, but at that point, it makes more sense that this was an actual alien craft that reached ancient Egypt. The Egyptians saw it and they freaking drew it on the walls. At that point, it makes more sense. Yeah, the hard floppy disk, you remember that? Another thing that you will notice that I think is fascinating, when you look at sci-fi movies all the way up to the 70s, there are no screens. No screens. Because, I mean, 50s, 60s maybe, but actually probably not. All the way up to the late 70s, there were no screens, the way we understand them. So futuristic stuff that it was made like in 1960 or maybe 1950s, you don't see the screens. They just you see glowing lights, buttons everywhere, but no screens. And I thought it's fascinating because for us it's obvious that screens, but yeah, Star Trek is an example of this. Yeah. People believe in aliens. Yeah, I mean, I do believe that there is a possibility that aliens exist. Mathematically speaking, of course, we would go into the Fermi paradox. The universe is massive. What I don't know if I believe, and I'm a little skeptical about, is whether or not the aliens have actually visited us or whether or not the aliens are now running stuff and that kind of stuff. What's interesting, though, is that one of the things that we will discuss today, among other topics, is the pyramids. I do find it fascinating that whenever I speak about the pyramids, YouTube constantly slaps a community note about the reptilians, even when I'm not speaking about anything alien related and I'm just talking about the sort of technology that the Egyptians had, but I always get the reptilian slap for some reasons. But yeah, maybe we are the aliens, says Marco. Who knows? Yeah, that's one of the things. You'll see. I'll show you. It's kind of fascinating. Unless YouTube is just trying to tell me that I am the alien and I'm some kind of skin suit. That's one way to look at it. We'll have to see. Let me see. I also don't want to be disrespectful. Let me check the super chats. I don't want to miss super chats. There we go. Found it. Yeah, there we go. Thank you, Daniel. So the Egyptians had Call of Duty. Wow. Advanced military equipment. Also glory to Pompey. Glory to Pompey. Raise both arms, guys. Come on. Raise both arms for Pompey, as we always do. And yeah, I mean, some kind of Call of Duty again. But this is even more advanced than Call of Duty, to be honest. The helicopter, sure, but the spaceship and the flying tank. I mean, I don't know, man. But thank you. Thank you for the support. Thank you for the support. Live chat. Hovercraft. Yeah, says Nerfy on Twitch. Exactly. Yeah. Cool. All right. So, where are these found? There are two locations in ancient Egypt that are fascinating. We often talk about them on this channel, and they have to do with Seti. Now, who is Seti? Seti, as I can kind of put it here on screen just to make it a little easier so we can get a little visual representation. But in general, Seti I is a pharaoh of the 19th dynasty, so we're in the New Kingdom. Second pharaoh, if I'm not wrong. Seti I. We can get a nice image. Yeah. There you go. So, Seti I, important pharaoh, father of Ramses the second, and he built a structure called, we have both the tomb of Seti I, which is this one here, and I've addressed the contents of the tomb of Seti I multiple times when I was making my response videos to the Afrocentric community. If you remember, the tomb of Seti I was one of the main areas of disagreement, and I personally think I came out on top of that categorically. We'll revisit a few things. So, Tomb of Seti I is one place and one structure that we often discuss, and it's very important for all the art that we see on the walls. And then the other one is the Temple of Seti I. The temple is the one that contains, where is it? These ones here, just to make a clear distinction, and it's found in the city of Abydos, which is a very important city when it comes to archaeology in the context of Egyptology, because of the multiple necropolis. There's more than one necropolis in there. There is the temple, of course, and several other structures that are important for the study of ancient Egyptian culture and mythology and whatnot. And this paper that I just showed you a second ago, this one here, is instead about the tomb, which is called KV17, and then we'll show some of the stuff that has to do with that. But when we talk about the helicopter, we're talking about the temple. Okay. Now, if you look at this, it's a good representation of what we're talking about now, and Seti I wrote something in this area of the cartouche. What he wrote is his king's titles, because in ancient Egypt, usually pharaoh can have up to 5 royal titles to their name. And so they would write all of these, often in these temples, because do remember the Seti I is one of those, it's kind of a restoration pharaoh. It was a pharaoh that was reconnecting to the previous cults. It was a pharaoh that was bringing back the power of Egyptian authority in vogue. So it's kind of a restoring the tradition type of pharaoh. Anyways, he wrote his kingly names on here, but then the temple wasn't finished when he was alive. He died before the temple was completed, and his son Ramses II is the one that completed the temple. And after he completed the temple for his father, he decided to put his own kingly titles, royal titles, and he wrote them on top of those of his father. Not very nice, if you ask me, but that's the idea. So when we look at these hieroglyphs, at least that's the main explanation when it comes to mainstream archaeology, we have to look at them as different hieroglyphs. So in dark, as you can see, so the part that kind of looks like the helicopter's blades is part of the first hieroglyph. Am I covering it? No. Okay, good. Yeah, no, I'm not covering it good. So the dark green, dark bluish green is the part that was part of the initial drawing done by Seti I. And then you can see, so here it would be just, it kind of stops looking like a helicopter when you remove the bright green, which is what Ramses instead wrote. And these have been identified as you read them separately, as separate glyphs. When it comes to the tank, kind of still looks like a tank. So that doesn't really work with the tank. I guess what you lose is part of this, what would you call it? The spine at the back, you know, man, this has a word. A lot of cars have it. They had to add these to the Audi TT model from 1999 because they were dangerous without it. And they added them to balance. What are they? A cane? Is that what you call them? A spoiler, yes. So this kind of loses, thank you, appreciate. It kind of loses the spoiler. It makes it less aerodynamic. So I think it looked cooler with the addition with this. So if you remove it, it loses a bit of that, but it still kind of looks a bit like a tank, not as much. The one that I think is losing a lot of it is, of course, this one here, the spaceship. But then again, it kind of stops being a spaceship, and then it still looks a bit like a flying saucer. Maybe it's just a flying saucer at this point, but it is a recognized glyph. So, but then again, I think the one that loses the most is the helicopter. Do you guys agree? The helicopter is kind of gone once you remove the bright green. The tank is still kind of there, but loses the little thing here, the spoiler, and the UFO, the spaceship from the side, kind of reverts back to a more typical UFO at this point, or UAP, although we do lose part of the lower end. So at that point, you can kind of see where this is going with the situation. Likewise, what we were kind of imagining as, the exercise that I was doing a second ago, maybe now the tank is the UFO, possibly. But the exercise we were doing here, and this could have been the basis of operation, and this is the tower, this is a flying thing that is arriving, and this is the hangar, and there's more vehicles, or maybe a sort of astro defense thing, a golden dome. Yeah, all of this is gone. Like, this one is completely gone. Once you see that they are separate, all my imagination here, unfortunately, because it was really cool, but this one is completely 100% gone. At this point, there's nothing. So, yeah. Yeah, the reason why I said Audi is because that was my car. I had an Audi TT from 1999. It's exactly the car I had in Italy. It was my car. Sold it when I moved to the US. Cool. All right. So let me see what you guys say and think about this. Oh, and to give you a date, 13th century BC is when the temple was built. 13th century BC. All right, so let's see your opinions, and then we continue. Yeah, Matt basically said what I just said, so yeah, I did say that. No, don't tell me to look into it online. Maybe wait for me to conclude the presentation, Matt Dubinsky. Now you're telling me, please look it up online. It's debunked, all in caps. I get it. I think you're getting a bit emotional about this. I'm the guy who sits down, looks at this, calm as a monk in morphine, and then review the data bit by bit. That's what I'm doing. So no need to get, if you get mad, means you're getting compromised, and that's problematic, my friend. Hey, Baron, good to see you here. Hello, hello. Yeah. Egyptian Halo, since Daniel Edwards. Yeah, I think it would be more, yeah, exactly. If you look at these that way, it's more Halo than Call of Duty, I want to say, at that point. Absolutely. Absolutely. Dave Ross says, it's funny, the old Star Trek shows use tablets to seem futuristic, but they've been common for so long now. Sure, yeah. And don't they have like holograms? I think holograms is one of the things that It was mostly kind of, well, we are getting there now. I think we do have that kind of tech with augmented reality, but that was something that we've been imagining for a while now. Thank you, Sir Tim94. I appreciate your support. Yeah, the helicopter now looks more like a domino mask. Yeah, the helicopter is gone. Which is a shame because it looks really nice. I like it. It's one of those situations, isn't it? Have I ever watched Magical Egypt? No, I don't think I have. Let me have a look. Let me put you a little bit so we see what you guys are saying, and then we continue. Let's see. Yeah, spoiler. I could not think of that word. I don't know why, but it happens. Hey, Kellen. Thank you very much for being here. Appreciate. Yeah, they are uncanny. I like that you use that word. They are uncanny. And I can absolutely understand, which is why I am not on the side of let's shame anyone who even dares to think. I don't appreciate that approach. The images are compelling. The only problem I have is when people try to make a profit or go viral stating facts that they don't have. That's when I draw the line. But the images are compelling when they are not examined with this. The images are compelling. And the Egyptian light bulb, I'm aware of that. Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think it looks more like a tank to me, the flying ones. No video or audio, are you sure? My screen went black. I think it's just your screen, mate. But let me know if you guys are getting also problems. Anything out of context is compelling. I wouldn't say anything is compelling, but kind of depends. I wish it was real. Me too, Big Boss, by the way. 100%. I wish it was real. Yeah. Stream is fine. Okay, good. Working perfectly. Okay. Good stuff. Appreciate that. What would Flint Dibble think? I can ask him if you want. We've been speaking a little bit behind the scenes. I can already imagine. Of course. The tank looks more like a battleship to you. You mean a battleship like in the sea? So you see it as... Yeah, like Royal Navy, literally Royal Navy, but like Pharaonic Royal Navy, man. Pharaonic Royal Navy. We need some guns though. Yeah, we discussed Pareidolia earlier on, absolutely. I do think the Pareidolia is the most reasonable explanation because, of course, we have to try. As much as I love the idea, and we'll talk about the airplane, the wooden airplane as well, We will discuss the wooden airplane as well. But yeah, I have to try and use Occam Razor. It's one of those situations like when you talk about this as well, which I'm sure you must have heard. But if you talk about the pyramids power plants, which, yeah, there are people that believe this, that push this idea. And I don't believe it. I do not think there is any reason for us to believe that the pyramids generated electricity, which, by the way, it's one of the things that one of the three scientists that found the alleged discoveries under the pyramids and the structures that we've been discussing, Armando May, he absolutely stated and he did it in English. It's not even a thing that Metatron, you sure you're not mistranslating Italian? No, he did it in English. He's one of the people that believes that one of the possible usages, functions of these supposed shafts is to produce electricity. To which I ask, what does a civilization do with the production of electricity if they don't have machines that are powered by said electricity? And so at that point, either you find a machine, not a wooden thing that could look like a plane, but an actual machine that could be used with electricity. You find it, then we can talk. I mean, we can always talk, but I mean, then we can talk with an actual discovery. Or we have to once again go back to the possibility that it was aliens, that I personally don't believe, but at that point, at least, it's like, no, the power plants were used for the aliens, so the aliens can kind of recharge their machines. I'm going to say something about that, though. But the aliens are going to use it to recharge their machines. And then when they left, they took all of their tech with them. And so we don't have the devices, but we still have the energy productors. I don't believe it, but I'm just trying to give it at least logical sense. At least it first needs to make sense logically, and then we can discuss about the chances of the likelihood of such hypothesis to be real. And my real question when it comes to this, or alien landing pads, there you go, Savage, yeah. So my real question when it comes to the idea of the aliens were here, it was their tech. They did not give the tech to the humans because the humans were the subjects, and so they just used the humans as workforce or whatever. But then the aliens had their tech, but then when they left, they took the tech with them. Okay, but then I ask you this. Why would the aliens that are so technologically advanced to reach Earth, who knows from wherever the heck they come from, and then they colonize it, why are they having their subjects build their power plants in stone? Because one thing I can tell you is that the aliens did not use stone to come here. They must have alloys, they must have, and they could, in fact, if these aliens exist, it's logical to imagine that they would have materials that we can't even fathom. We haven't discovered yet. I mean, think how recent titanium is, for instance. Like I think it's the late 1800s is when, yeah, I think it is. So why are they using stone? Why are they not using their own technology and materials? Why are they not using iron, for crying out loud? To them, iron is prehistoric, as it is to us, but we still use it. Why are they not using steel? Why are they building without? They are literally conveniently using limestone and materials that were available 5,000 years ago, and there is nothing that we have discovered like a titanium alloy or steel, advanced steel, in fact, chrome steel, and all that kind of stuff. Why are they not, or even better, something that, we don't even know it exists. Like, could you imagine that? If we could find, I would love for that to happen, that they would find something buried somewhere, you kind of move around Zahi Hawass and he's trying to stop you, but then is moved around, and then we find an object, and this object is actually analyzed, and then the material is unknown. Wouldn't that be fantastic? Steel corrodes. Well, no, if it's stainless, it doesn't. If it's stainless, it doesn't, and we know how to make sure steel doesn't corrode, then if we can do it, of course, an alien civilization that is advanced enough to reach us would know how to deal with that. I mean, even the Romans had techniques to make, by the way, rust-proof steel. One of these was silvering. It's just that it cost a lot of money, so they only did it for stuff that was very expensive. But another thing that they would do was tinning or gilding. All of this resolves the problem with rust, and the techniques that the Romans used to tin, and we have evidence that they did it with armor sometimes, is that they would apply liquid tin and let it solidify on top of the plates, and that would make your plates rust proof. And the reason why I know it works really well is because my personal Loriga segmentata has been tinned. So that's exactly what my armorer did to my segmentata. I asked him to do it, and yeah. And they did it. They had access to that tech already. So, of course, the aliens with access to that tech is like a no-brainer at that point. It's just one of those things. And, yeah, electricity would explain how they made the helicopters. And I guess, yes, but you need to first prove the electricity then. We need to turn on the pyramids. We got to turn them on, and then they go... They go like this. Then I'm happy to consider that. Then I'm happy to consider it. Yeah. Thank you. Razorben and Metatron, have you checked out the Y files? Yes, I've responded to them a couple of times on this channel. I like the channel, but I did disagree on a few things. But it doesn't matter, because just because I disagree doesn't mean that I hold it against them. So, good channel. Very entertaining. Love the goldfish. Love the goldfish. Story of Prometheus, yeah. Let me check for super chats, making sure I didn't. No, I think I read all of them. Great. Great. Fantastic. Imagine. Imagine the Pharaoh's power bill. Oh my gosh. Yeah, could you imagine that? Yeah, good luck with that. With the Pharaoh's power bill. Goodness gracious. Absolutely. Yeah, you don't have to take it literally. The ex Andrew, it's a joke, but it is a good joke. It is a good joke. Yeah. Diana Mary, can you please finally say it's overlapping works? I already said it multiple times and even showed it. This one here. Yeah, I've already said it. The fine second was a reworking of Ramses II. Yeah, I said all of that. I've already said all of that during this live stream. Hey Melanie, so good to see you here. Maybe they were imaginative works of art like we create in modern times. No, this is actually the royal names. It's as I was saying, it's let me see if I get the actual nomenclature because I do. Yeah, 5 official royal names in their titles is that's what's basically written there. And it's just that the son, Ramses II, kind of wrote on top of what Seti I said. Hecklefish, yeah, I love Hecklefish, absolutely. Hecklefish is the bomb. Thank you, Phase 2. Maybe Baghdad battery could be used to plate metal. I have no idea what that is, but I appreciate the support, as always. Thank you very much for the support. Let's see, let's see. Oh, no worry, Diana. Yeah, we already said all of that. And in fact, we did say that once you look at the different colors that represent the two different writings, then the helicopter is the one that is gone. The UFO is still kind of there a little bit, but it loses the kind of the attachment to the fuselage and the tail. And then the tank would be the one that is most. It only loses a little bit here, but not too much. And this one is completely gone. We tried to imagine this one. It was kind of fun to do as an exercise, but here we are. Oh, the Sphinx is a switch. Maybe, Nerfy. That could be the case. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Metatron, what do you think of my idea that the only way aliens made this is as a flex or to play with people as toys? I think it's a humanization of what aliens could be. And that's one thing actually that I don't like in sci-fi. When aliens look too human. So aliens are like not only humanoid, fine. I'm fine with humanoid. But when aliens look to humans, they behave like humans, they talk like humans, they do everything the way we do. The only difference sometimes is that they're a little more proper, if you noticed. Oftentimes the aliens are like, we shall now revere your position on this. Like the aliens tend to be very, very, very proper. But in general, they're too human. I enjoy sci-fi movies, particularly sci-fi horror, but in general, sci-fi movies where aliens are not very much like humans at all, and that's when I enjoy it the most. Because I mean, who the heck knows? Man, this makes me want to play Mass Effect, though. Aristotle says they no, sorry, what is it? RS says they resemble humans because of the laws of convergent evolution on this planet, where we have got only this as a reference point. We haven't got a clue if there are other alien species. We would have to see their environment, if they're carbon based. That is, we would have to see their environment where they developed in, and then who the heck knows? Who the heck knows? Of course, St. Nicholas, if you add the theistic position, then the idea would still be the aliens are still made by God and therefore in his image, and therefore they would look somewhat like us. With that being said, even in that point, in that viewpoint, look at humans on this planet and take a white guy, an Asian, an Arab, a Black African, a Native American, a Nordic type, a Southern European, and we already look really different. Our colors are different. A lot of things are different, not genetically, but I'm saying like the looks due to what? The environment and the response of our bodies to our environments to guarantee or increase the chances or the likelihood of survival. Right? The whiter skin because Nordic types, weather was cold, the sunlight and whatnot, whereas darker hues in order to survive the desert. Now multiply that by 100 when it's a different planet. So even from a theistic perspective, you shouldn't expect the aliens to look too much like us. They would have like an imprint that makes them look like the creator, but they could absolutely have colors, blue skin, or who the heck knows. Like at that point, we would have to discuss with a theoretical physicist for the ideas to even make sense from a logical perspective, and biology and whatnot. But still, I think it is easy to imagine, even if you put the if you remove the creator from this and you look at it from an atheistic perspective, then it could be anything. We haven't got a clue. But if you look at it from a theistic perspective and you think still made in God's image, even with that parameter on, the way they could be different from us is still massive. Is still massive. Careful, OG, I'm going to block you because I am a Christian and I'm not going to let you bully me. This is my platform. If you have a problem with that, you can leave. I always share a lot of respect for people who don't believe and atheists, but if you're here to mock, you're out. So just so you know, I'm giving you a warning. 1 minute of timeout, and then we'll see. Let's see. Octopus look. Octopus, what's the plural? Octopi? Or octopuses? I don't know. You guys tell me. It's your language. Let's see. Hate Him says, yes, atheists are not friends. No, I disagree. I got a lot of friends and family members who are atheists. It's just a specific type. Octopi. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you. No, it's a person. It's a case by case. Some atheists are very respectful and whatever, and I respect them back. But some atheists are very combative, and yeah, I don't appreciate those. Particularly when if an atheist is combative against a combative Christian, fine. And doesn't even have to be Christian, a religious person or theist, then I get it, it's fine. They're both combative, combat away. But if I'm being respectful and people are going to be disrespectful, then no. At that point, I'm like, no. But yeah, octopi, wow. Octopi. But there we go. Daniele Fabro is an atheist, but he's one that doesn't have anything against religious people. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Exactly, yeah, Dr. Offensive says, I'm very respectful if you're respectful towards me being an atheist. Absolutely. And I'm the kind of guy who can sit down and have a coffee. I don't change my opinion on people based on whether or not they share my beliefs. And I absolutely understand the point of view of atheist people. In fact, yeah, I have no problems with that. Totally. The only problem I have is with people that were like, stop with nonsense, there is no God. If you do that, then you're an idiot. Sorry, at that point, I'm going to say it. But yeah. And I say the same about toxic Christians, the ones that go around and tell people you'll burn in hell, ha 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 ha, and that kind of stuff. I'm like, my man, the Lord spoke about you and how he'll say he'll never knew you if you act like that. So there's that. Yeah. You believe in Odin. Believe away, my friend. Warrior Norman. I mean, makes sense with your name. Mystery Man asks a good question. How can they be so sure that nothing exists? They can't. And even Richard Dawkins, when pushed, he will say, well, of course you can't, that's 100%. But he says, given the evidence that have been presented, I do not believe that there is a God, right? But yeah, you can't say it as it's because, and the reason why you can't say it, it's not that it's such a strong position, the position of believing, even though that's the position I assume, but it's because it's an unfalsifiable statement, and so you can't falsify it, and unless you actually have proof, but there is no proof. And a proof of a negative is what it is, because, and then we go into the burden of proof and whatnot, but it doesn't matter. So yeah, it's the real position that I can respect from an atheist is that they tell me, I've looked into it, and I don't think there is enough evidence for me to believe. So I don't think there is a God. Fine. I can respect that. And that's that. And I can flip that back to you, Aristotle's Van Tite. I can flip that exactly as it is to you. And even though that specific mental positioning that you have, which is respectful, led you to atheism, it led me to religion. So at the end of the day, lived life and lived experiences, I guess. Yeah. OG says, I think saying creator is a cop out respectfully. A cop out of what? Because I'm not saying it. Like, I think you're misconstruing my argument here. Here I'm just discussing, we were talking a little bit about aliens because there is a spaceship on screen. And then I say, depending on how you look at it, if you look at it from the perspective of creationism, and then you think there is a maker, then yeah, it would follow logic that then you expect the aliens as a creator, as a creationist, or a Christian, or even a Muslim at this point, or a Jewish, you would expect the aliens too to be made in the image of God. But of course, if you go from the perspective of an atheist, then you're not bound by this factor, if you will. That's all I was saying. I wasn't even saying this is the aliens have to look like this because there is a God, and if you don't believe, like, that's not what I'm saying. So it cannot be a cop-out if I'm not using it. I'm just giving you two perspectives that exist, because I believe in a maker, therefore yes, that's my perspective, but I'm not saying that it's the only perspective or the only reasonable perspective by any means. Yeah. Hail Spaghetti Monster. I wonder why spaghetti, specifically. I think someone did tell me at one point why the spaghetti. I mean, pasta supremacy and whatnot, I can understand that much. Dr. Steve J, if you're not interested in the topic, you don't have to be here. I cover what I like, and I cover what I find interesting. I think this is interesting. You say, why are you covering this nonsense? It is people that have an attitude like you that gives power to all sorts of alternative interpretation of history and archaeology. It's precisely this attitude, which we really, as someone who believes in the academic approach, as long as it's done professionally and not to push a message, as someone who will always side to the side of, let's look at the evidence, let's look at the facts when it comes to history and archaeology. This is the typical attitude of this side, and that's why you lose against the popularity of those who instead tell you, oh, no, this is 100% a helicopter, this is a tank, and this is a UFO because the aliens are here, they're covering up. They will always win if you approach with this and say, why are you even covering this nonsense? You shouldn't talk about it. Well, then who's left to talk about it? Ask yourself this question. If we who want the evidence don't talk about it because shame, stupid, who's left? And then you wonder why they're more popular? It's a matter of strategy, man. You got to be strategic. If you want education and critical thinking to be the most popular approach, then you have to ditch the this is stupid, you're stupid, I'm smarter than you, I'm holier than thou approach that a lot of academics have, including those online. It's off-putting. You don't know who Joe Rogan is? Oh, goodness gracious, 20 million subscribers the guy has. But fine, that I guess you're not into, you're definitely not into politics either, I suppose. Spot On says, aloha. Yeah, that's how it is. That's just how it is. Why do we give so much credit, I think you mean, to aliens? Are we that bad? I mean, it's a good question. I think it's because it is indeed. It's because we don't have all the answers when it comes to this stuff. And when we're talking about the pyramids, even if you subscribe to alternative ideas, then The pyramids have been dated back. If we want to look at Robert Bauval already dated it back to 10,000 BC. Then you look at the likes of Armando May, who for whatever reason pushes it back to 36,400 years BC, which is nonsense. But even if you go back to the regular dating, which is about 5,000 years ago, it's difficult for us to understand how they did it. We don't know how I know that Zahi Hawass says he knows how they did it, but I don't trust a word that comes from Zahi Hawass. And so the reality is that we have strong hypotheses, but we still don't know 100% how they did what they did, which is impressive. And I think that the reason why we don't have the explanations for stuff that happened thousands of years ago, and the further back you go, the harder it is because of the lack of immediate evidence, then that's when we try to fill in the gaps within our knowledge, and then there is the imaginative aspect of it. You trust Zahi Hawass? Well, good for you, but I don't. So we'll have to agree to disagree on that. I do not trust a single word that the man, as I have shown, who said, he talked about Robert Bauval, and he talked about the Göbekli Tepe, that place in Turkey. He spoke about it, he complained about it, he screamed about it, and then afterwards, a few years down the line, when Joe Rogan asked him about these two things, he said, never heard of it, must be a lie. And that's a lie, because he had heard of it. So already, if we really are looking for a lie, then that's the lie at that point. Unless he completely forgot, I'll give him, maybe he's getting senile, I don't know. I'll give him that possibility. But yeah, there were those two situations. And also, since we are talking a little bit about the Temple of Seti I, you know what else is found in the Temple of Seti I? The King's List. The one, I think it's one of the King's List that Joe Rogan was asking Mr. Hawass, and he once again said, I don't know what it is. I'm not going to believe it. Göbekli, thank you. Yeah, of course, Göbekli Tepe is real. It's a real archaeological finding, 100%. And he pretended that he had never heard about the King's List. Well, it's found in here. And in fact, it is the only reference that we have. This is how important it is. It's not like, just to give you this little piece of information here. The King's List is so important because it's the only one we have that tells us about all of the different pharaohs of all the different dynasties written in this list. That's the one we have. It's a big deal. It is a big deal, and it's in this temple. So, yeah. 3 things he said he didn't know anything about. 2, I found footage of him speaking about it years before. So he did hear about it. I don't know why he did. He said he had never heard about it if he did, since I found proof of that. And the 3rd one is something that it's impossible that someone who's that deep into Egyptology doesn't know about. Although, I want to be fair, I don't like the guy, but I want to try and be fair. Maybe you think it could be a language barrier. So like if you had told him in Arabic the name of the King's List, maybe he would have known what it is, and he didn't recognize it when Joe said it in English. Do you think it could be that? But even if that's the case, and we want to give him that one, I'm willing to do that. But even if that were the case, then the thing that I hate about Mr. Hawass' approach is that even when he doesn't understand, he will still put his hands forward and say, it's a lie, it never happened. But if you don't understand what the topic of the conversation is, and you immediately classify it as a lie, then I'm not going to believe anything you say, because that's all you do. It's control of information. I do not believe, nor do I like Mr. Hawass one bit. Thank you. Raisberg. Favorite Iron Maiden album? You like them? I don't know who the Misfits are. I honestly right now don't remember the names of any album. I'm more of a Metallica guy, or Nirvana guy, or Stratovarius. That's another one I like a lot. Like if we go from heavy metal into epic metal, then I have a few. Iron Maiden, I don't remember the names. I'm terrible with names, though. You looked into it too, Diana? Yeah, I know. Yeah, you can find some stuff all the way down to 10 years ago when the split second someone mentioned the name Robert Bauval, who is an Egyptian archaeologist, by the way, but he is sort of the developer of a fringe theory that is called the Orion theory, the Orion correlation theory. I'll write it here. And yeah, it's basically, if you have ever heard that the alignment of the three pyramids in the Giza plateau, they are aligned in a way there will be a mapping of the astronomical positioning of the three stars in the Orion belt. If you have heard this at any point, it's connected to the theories proposed by, it's a fringe theory proposed by Robert Bauval. So this is the guy. And basically, it would be, from the point of view of Zahi Hawass, this is the Antichrist, just so you know, because when he heard that name, he exploded. And then I have to believe that when Joe Rogan during the interview mentions Robert Bauval, Zahi Hawass says, never heard of him, I don't know who that is. Yeah, come on. After I've seen him explode. Thank you, Valentine Puppy. Ronnie James, Dio is God of metal, period. Love you. Yeah, I mean, Dio means God, yeah, but I don't know what you were talking about. Something in between yourselves. The cognitive dissonance is strong in Zahi Hawass. As long as we remember it's not Zawi, and we remember it's in his book, and we remember that it's not a door, but a hatch, the one on top of the Sphinx. As long as you remember these three things, no problems, guys. No problems. Yeah, Nirvana were good, Dan the Jedi. I still remember Smells Like Teen Spirit. It was a good one. It's a shame that Kurt Cobain had to use substances, but I guess everybody did back in the day when it comes to these kind of, maybe not everybody, but I think it was quite common practice to use substances when you were like in a band and something like that, which is really a shame. Really a shame. When I try and move my knee, if I mute myself because I touch the cable, I'll reconnect it. Oh gosh, much better. Whew, much better. Kurt Cobain is cooked. He definitely was cooked, yeah. Yeah. Let's see. You can't recognize my Megadeth shirt. It's let me see. No. Euthanasia. It's euthanasia. That's what it says. Yeah. I got it the other day when I took my wife to this shopping center. I prefer Metallica over Megadeth, but still, I saw this. I like the shirt. I like the colors. Blue and orange with a little yellow at the bottom. I thought it was good. And so I got this. I got a Metallica shirt. I got a few other, and a pair of sunglasses. Yeah. Your favorite Metallica song is always The Unforgiven. For me, Ride the Lightning, which gave title to the for me the best album of their career. But then again, yeah. Hey, it's a good picture. I agree. Yeah, totally. Yeah, exactly, Peep. Yeah. Well, I don't know if he spoke perfect English, but but he should have asked for clarification anytime if he didn't understand. Like if I was asked to, well, if I was asked to go to have a conversation in English, of course, not a problem. If someone asked me to go to any place and it's in Japanese, I think I should still be able to do it without needing any. But maybe if they use a technical term, absolutely, I would ask. If I was asked to do it in Mandarin, I would have to ask quite a few times for confirmation, making sure. But definitely, what I wouldn't do is to say lie, 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 lie. That I wouldn't do if I'm not understanding what's being said. Yeah. My mind always goes blank when someone asks me about a favorite anything. I absolutely understand the feeling, my friend. Me too. Same thing. Kind of depends. There are situations. If they ask me favorite civilization, I'm gonna say Rome. I mean, that's gonna take that doesn't take that long. But I do understand, yeah, if they ask me, like, your favorite 5 video games, oh gosh, I don't know, because it depends on the mood, doesn't it? Sometimes I get fixated with some games, and I have to try the new Expedition 33. We'll play it one of these nights. Thank you, HS. Ever hear of the Tartaria theory? Love your work. It actually rings the bell, but I can't put my finger on it right now. But it does ring the bell, yes. Yeah. So anyways, that was what I wanted to share when it comes to this first part with the, what is it? I have too many things. Let me close Orion. There we go. We don't need Journey to Silius. We don't need this. We can close this. We don't need Pareidolia. Okay, we got what we needed right now. So there is so this is the Joe Rogan episode. We'll try and watch it a little bit, but most likely I'll watch it on Twitch. One thing that you may have found, and if you haven't, there is this. So this is a video response to Joe Rogan from an archaeologist, and she talks specifically about what we have discussed today. And the name of the channel is Dig It with Raven. What I found interesting, I think she did this live because there is a live chat replay. But what I found interesting about this response, it's not long, we can watch a little bit. But what I found interesting about this response is the fact that if you look at the comments, it's really split. You've got people that love her, and you've got people that absolutely hate her. And I kind of want to see how you guys think, what you guys think. I think she did a good job when it comes to the presentation of the facts. And yeah, it coincides with what I shared today. Because yeah, that is if you've ever looked into those helicopter stuff and you look for the evidence and what archaeology says, that's the information. That's what it is. Now you can choose to believe it or not, but at least, of course, it's important to look it up. And I would love to have her as a guest at one point, because I like how she gives you a little bit of an explanation of the situation, and she shows you the stuff. Look at this. Yeah, I think she does a good job. But some people didn't like the attitude, and I can understand that. It didn't bother me, but I can understand it. She did some stuff in the Mayans there. That could be interesting to watch. Like, as I say, she did not bother me at all. I was watching it because I had prepared this presentation, and I had also this document that I studied deeply already. I resurfaced it, and we'll look into it a little bit now. But then I decided, but let me see if it changed. Let me see if they presented new evidence that I don't know about. Because again, I've addressed ancient Egypt. There was a time in my channel where I started producing a lot of videos, particularly when I was clashing with the Afrocentrist community when it comes to ancient Egypt. But the last time I did that was a year ago. So I'm like, maybe there is new information. And by the way, that's something you should always do. And so I found this video immediately, and I watched it, and I noticed that it's pretty much the same stuff. That she didn't present anything new, but she did show a lot more pictures than I did, so I still think it's nice to watch it. Now, the attitude, some people didn't like it, some people don't have a problem with it. It didn't offend me, but then again, I'm almost inoffensible. Let's see what you guys think. Let's have a look. She's pretty, says Derek. Yeah, she's a good-looking woman. All right, let's have a look. Sorry, I need to give you. All right, so maybe, because if the way she presented information doesn't connect with you, then whatever. But if the way she presents information is something you like, boom, you can subscribe. Isn't that great? Freedom to all. Let's go.
I cannot believe that I'm about to do this. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Dig It with Raven. Today we are doing something that I have sworn off for years, but the universe has pulled me right back into this path of madness, so I've just decided to face it head on.
Right.
Today, we are debunking Joe Rogan and the helicopter hieroglyphs.
Right. So we gotta be careful a little bit when it comes to the clips that she actually... Let me see when she plays Joe Rogan. All right, yeah, there we go. She does here. We'll try. Let's go.
So this week I was scrolling my YouTube homepage, as one does, and this clip from the Joe Rogan Experience came across my feed.
Yeah.
I normally ignore all this ancient aliens stuff, but for some reason I clicked it. It was, you know what? The thumbnail got me. That's what everyone wants to say. I wanted to hear what they were going to say about the supposed helicopter hieroglyphs at Abydos. And unsurprisingly, a bunch of claims were made without anyone doing any sort of research or just basic Googling. So here I am to help you all out.
Okay.
First off, hello, Joe.
Someone is saying you don't like the ring she's wearing, the nose ring. Well, then again, I mean, anyone is free to express themselves however they want. I mean, look at me. I'm a guy and my hair reaches my waist. There are people that sometimes tell me, shave that, what are you doing? So at the end of the day, who cares? To each his own. I wouldn't wear it, but who cares? It's not me, is it?
My name is Raven, and I am an archaeologist. My qualifications are, I have a bachelor in ancient Near Eastern civilizations where I learned to read hieroglyphs, right here.
Right.
I also have 2 master's degrees that also focused on ancient Egyptian archaeology in some form or another, and I personally translated this tattoo on my arm. So I can read some hieroglyphs. I also wrote this book about lesser known ancient...
Do you think a tattoo on my arm would look good? It's a joke. I'm against the tattoos on myself, but yeah. Yeah, no, she's very, very, yeah. Some people I saw people in the comments complaining about her presenting her qualifications as a flex. That's kind of silly. I mean, she's got to tell you why you should believe what she says. As long as people don't do it like, I have this qualification, so don't you dare have a different opinion. That's the part where it annoys me, but she's just presenting her qualifications. I don't have a problem with that. Yeah, you love her nails. You sound like my wife.
Arm. So I can read some hieroglyphs. I also wrote this book about lesser known ancient civilizations and cultures, but that's not relevant for today's video. Oh, and you might not have noticed, but
Shameless plug.
I did make a very brief cameo on your podcast episode with Flint Dibble. There I am. So without further ado, let's dig into the clip.
Wow. I know.
So what that means is that she was one of the experts that Flint Dibble contacted when he was preparing for his debate with Hancock. Basically, that's what that is.
That's what I wanted to go see. But the cool thing was the first temple I went in was what I'd seen on Ancient Aliens, where at the very top of the temple, you have one of the most famous hieroglyphs, which has a spaceship, a helicopter, and a submarine up there.
Okay, I'm going to stop it there. We'll watch the rest later because I'm not risking it. He's going to show the helicopter, the other thing. We'll watch it later. Let's see how she responds to this.
Yeah, that was the first
if
place
it's
I
not a helicopter, what a goddamn
What is it?
coincidence.
Yeah.
Okay, so right off the bat, these gentlemen are talking about a segment of hieroglyphs in the Temple of Seti I
Right.
at Abydos,
Yeah.
which is one of the oldest cities of ancient Egypt. Abydos is also extremely important to archaeologists today because it's home to many temples and multiple royal necropoli,
Yeah.
such as el Kab, which is a vital source of information for early pharaohs of Egypt, and it also gives us the earliest evidence of writing that we have in ancient Egypt. So it's
Cool.
a literal treasure trove archaeologically for the history of ancient Egypt and the development of the entire civilization. The Temple of Seti I, where these helicopter hieroglyphs are found, also contains an inscription known as the Abydos King List, which
Yeah.
provides Egyptologists with
Man,
the order-
look at this. Hoo-hoo, that's a lot of work right there. Shame that the pigments are gone here. Did you know that a lot of unfortunately, when a lot of these images and paintings and murals, yeah, it is amazing. When they were found, a lot of these were found in the early 19th century. When you read the reports, and I read the letters just a couple of days ago as I was preparing for the stream, they say that the colors were as fresh as when they were painted. Unfortunately, however, as they are opened and oxygen enters, and then they start to get manipulated and touched and all of that kind of stuff and gessoed and all the situation that we can talk about what happens oftentimes, then they actually started deteriorating extremely quickly. So when you look at this, you think, well, it looks like this because it's thousands of years old, so of course over the period of time. But if you read the reports, this level of deterioration actually happened in the last 2 centuries. Not always the case, but I've read reports specifically when it comes to this, that they say, and the tomb even more so, that when they opened the tomb for the first time, the tomb of Seti I, the colors were vivid. Crazy.
Order of the Old Kingdom kings and is the sole source that we currently have for the names of many of the kings of the
as I was
7th
telling
and
you,
8th dynasties. And just so we're all on the same page, Seti I was the second pharaoh of the 19th dynasty during
Right.
ancient Egypt's New Kingdom. He ruled from around 12...
Did you notice that you can see the hieroglyphs are in full color? And here you still see the remains of the pigments, because when we imagine the hieroglyphs, we imagine them often like this. And then in video games and in the movies, often you see that the hieroglyphs, even though it is set in the periods that, like for instance, the New Kingdom in this case, they are always like this, bare of color. But then when you look at it, it's another one of those situations where there is polychromy in the ancient period. And it makes sense because it matches the polychromy that you have also in the classical antiquity in the Mediterranean world. Egypt is on the Mediterranean. So everything was so colorful, whether it be the Romans, whether it be the Greeks, whether it be the Egyptians, everything was bathed in multiple colors. And of course, blue being, the Egyptians were famous for their blue. So were the Greeks, by the way, before anyone tries to present again the nonsense idea where the Greeks couldn't see blue, which is insane, that the BBC as well were pushing that nonsense. The Greeks produced their own type of blue, but they also imported blue. And then the Romans had specific dyeing factories all over Italy where they were producing colors, including some types of blue, but the Egyptians could produce a specific hue that they had mastered the production of, that we can see here. And the colors, you can still see them, and I think it's absolutely phenomenal. Now, are these now, as we look at them in this very moment, are these an exact representation one-to-one to how the colors looked back in period? According to the researchers at the University of Florence, no. And I'll tell you how they have changed as we continue this live stream.
1294 or 1290 BCE, all the way until 1279 BCE. Seti I essentially restored the Egyptian Empire after it had been greatly diminished during the reign of Akhenaten, who was the pharaoh who converted the state to monotheism, and he was also the father of King Tutankhamun. Seti I, on the other hand, was the father of Ramses II, otherwise known as Ramses the Great. But let's get back to the Temple of Seti I, which is also known today as the Great Temple of Abydos. Construction on the temple was started in the 13th century BCE by Seti I, but it wasn't complete.
I know that some of you are triggered by the usage of BCE. I don't see the needs for it. I've even made a video about it where I have committed for the rest of my life to use BC AD. And in fact, when on my tomb, on my grave, I want them to write, he was born in AD 1982 and he died in AD. I want AD Anno Domini Nostri Jesu Christi written on that freaking grave. But that's beyond the point. I'm a freedom guy. If you like BCE CE, be my guest. Write it all over your walls. I refuse to do it, though.
Completed by the time he died. So it was finished and also renovated by his son, Ramses II. We have evidence that Ramses II changed its original design and placed new inscriptions within the temple.
That's it.
Which brings me to the oh-so-famous hieroglyphs at hand. Let's look at them a little bit more closely, shall we? From top to bottom, it's been noted that this looks like a helicopter.
Which it does.
This could be a submarine or a tank or sometimes a yacht.
I did not remember that she said tank as well. Yeah, okay, we are in agreement. That's a flying tank. Love that. I mean, look, you can even see a little bit of the arm. I'm being sarcastic before people clip it. But I'm saying you can even see at the front, you've got a little bit of armor. This is part of an armored unit. That's my take.
This one supposedly is a spaceship or also a submarine, depending on which interpretation you look at. And the one at the bottom is a glider. Needless to say, people have
Oh, come on, that's not a glider. That's a spaceship. Use your imagination, please. This is a spaceship. Like, I can already see the two little greys in here. No reptilians, though. Okay, no reptilians. Reptilians, obviously, don't sit in these. Too big. These are for the greys.
Of symbols and concocted theories of alien contact or advanced technology that is now lost to time.
Right.
Or my favorite is being covered up by modern archaeologists, because we certainly get paid enough to cover things up. If only. And sure, you know, when I was a kid and this sort of stuff would come up on the History Channel, I ate it up. Mostly because it was one of the only sources of ancient Egyptian history content that I had at the time, but also because, yeah, it's pretty fantastical. But when you actually start studying this sort of stuff, you quickly move on from the fantastical to the much more reasonable conclusions that are based on fact.
What do you mean fantastical, Doctor? Bow down to your reptilian overlords.
I had to do it.
So I'm sorry to say to everyone watching that no, these hieroglyphs are not evidence of advanced ancient technology or aliens. They are in fact an early case of whiteout, otherwise known as a palimpsest when it's referring to a similar act in a manuscript where the text has been scraped or washed off in preparation for new text to be written over top. This relief isn't one original set of carvings. It's actually two overlapping inscriptions of the official kingly titles of Ramses II and Seti I. When Ramses II was renovating the Temple of Seti
to be honest, I mean, you did see, it's not like she needed to pull this one out, the Zaki Hawass book. This was actually, we Googled it, we only wrote it once, and we found it. I already knew it was there, but I kind of wanted to show you this. I just wrote it, hieroglyphs, helicopters. I scrolled twice, and we got into this. We found it immediately. So it was very easy to find. And I think it's important, particularly, and I do understand why she called it a debunking of Joe Rogan. To be fair to the guy, Joe Rogan didn't say, oh, these are absolutely, his guest was more onto the, yeah, these are aliens type of thing. But he kind of said, what a coincidence, which it is. He did say, wow, it does look like a helicopter, which I agree. It does look like a freaking helicopter. But he didn't kind of push it to be like, this is what it is, guys. They're covering it up. I watched the thing. He doesn't say that. However, I do also understand her frustration a little bit, because basically what she's saying is that perhaps when you have 20 million subscribers, in preparation to the episode, all you really needed to do is to Google this for literally 2 minutes, look at this, and at least present it as an alternative explanation. Because yeah, if you say it looks like a helicopter and your guest goes like, yeah, because of course the guest likes it very much, and then you don't say anything else, the masses are exposed to this, but they don't see this, right? So I do understand where she's coming from when it comes to that. Although then again, once again, I wouldn't call it a debunking of Joe Rogan, because it's not like he said it, but I do understand that she's saying this because really he could have showed at least both sides. And I'm always into show both sides and let people use their own critical thinking and say, and decide what they want to decide. Because yeah, that's freedom. That is freedom.
Of the official kingly titles of Ramses II and Seti I.
Yeah.
When Ramses II was renovating the Temple of Seti I, he had someone cover up Seti I's royal titulary and replace it with his own.
Not nice.
This is actually very common in ancient Egypt for people taking credit for things that other people might have done, or even trying to erase people from history. But then, over time, as some of the plaster eroded and fell away, it created a weird combo of signs that now look like these modern vehicles. So yes, Mr. Rogan, it is a goddamn coincidence.
At least I appreciate that she is willing to admit, because I've seen people that will, yeah, at least she does admit that they do look like that, which they do. But yeah.
Let's look at what each carving would have said when it was fresh. The initial inscription made during the reign of Seti I would look like this and translate to powerful...
Man, that looks like a bow. That looks like a bow. And then this is the tank. The tank is still there. Miss Raven, the tank is still there. And then we've got the UAP.
Scimitar, who suppresses the 9 bows.
It is a bow,
which is
yeah.
their way of saying the enemies of Egypt. Menmaatra, which is the throne name of Seti I.
Yeah.
Next, Ramses II, son of Seti I, filled that in and recarved it with his 2 ladies' names.
Yeah, so you can see how you're adding this, and now it looks like there is the kind of what do you call the tail end that is connected to a fuselage on a flying vehicle. that's basically part of the second inscription. And then that's be added to this. And then, yeah, this part, as we said, it only adds the little... Man, I can never remember this word. Spoiler, the little spoiler. And yeah, what is the helicopter? So yeah, this is the section that would add... Once again, man, what is it with Ramses adding tail ends of vehicles? Can we tell him to stop? Ramses, what are you doing? You're spoiling it. You're revealing it.
Protector of Egypt, who repels foreign lands. Usur Ma'atra Setapenre, which is the throne name for Ramses II.
That sounded very Anglophone.
Egyptian rulers had 5 official royal names in their title,
Yeah.
so one can see why you would need to reuse the space, because it would take up a lot of room.
Not to mention, Ramses could have said, spoiler alert, at least. Skeptical Luigi, you're great.
This segment that we just read out are the 2 ladies' names for each of the pharaohs, respectively. The 2 ladies are the goddesses Wadjet and Nekbet, who were the protectors of unified
Oh,
Egypt.
yeah, the ones that you find, yeah, I remember that.
And were responsible for
The mask.
establishing the laws, protecting rulers and the Egyptian countryside, and promoting peace. You can see them together on the crowns of ancient Egypt, and the 2 ladies, or Nebti name.
Can we take a moment to appreciate how beautiful blue and gold as a combination is? We don't see it very often. It's beautiful. Blue and gold. I'm considering, what could I do? What could I make in blue and gold in here? I don't know, but I'm starting to consider it. Goodness gracious, it looks good. Yeah. Isn't it, Hatim? Exactly. I mean, it's incredible. Lapis lazuli. My gosh.
Name is one of the oldest royal titles in ancient Egyptian history. So there you have it. No mass conspiracy, just damaged walls and age. Just look at the state of the ceiling right above it. It's...
Yeah, look at the ceiling. That's actually, I appreciate this. You see, what she could have done is that she could have told you, that's how it is, bye. You gotta believe me because I got the titles. Instead, she's actually showing you a better image so that people can look at this and be like, well, to be fair, this is collapsing. And then this piece of the cartouche is completely gone. So I can start to see even the bottom has been completely chipped. You can see this. And then we've got a little spacecraft. I can see that there isn't basically anything left when it comes to the second plastering. Be nice if some of this plastering was at the bottom, but I appreciate this.
Absolutely no wonder that the plaster fell off with all of that crumbling stone. If you still don't believe me, all you have to do is just shift your gaze a little to the left to see the cartouche, which has very obvious signs of carved glyphs over top of one another.
I wish you would have pointed it out, because this is a little bit of a teaching problem. You should never kind of take for granted that people know, like, which... She said it's very evident that there is... What did she say again?
Don't believe me? All you have to do is just shift your gaze a little to the left to see the cartouche, which has very obvious signs of carved glyphs over top.
Very obvious signs of carved glyphs over the top
Of one another.
one another. It would have been nice if you could, in fact, if you watch this, Doctor, Professor, if you could point these out to us, because I am not familiar with these symbols at all. In fact, whenever I work on anything Egypt related, I ask the Egyptologist from Rome, that is one of the members of my team, because I'm not able of reading hieroglyphs. Since you are, then it would be nice if you could provide maybe a screenshot where you write for me, or this is one part, like this piece belongs to one set of inscription, but the circle, for instance, is part of the secondary that was added later. Because to me, it's not obvious. I'm glad it's obvious to you, Southern Eastern. I don't know if you're joking, but to me, this isn't as obvious. I can see, though, that there is some plaster gone. I guess this is what it is, the white here, or maybe this piece, this section here. Clearly, this is one symbol, because it's a wasp. Be nice if she could point it, spell it out. Oh, you were joking. Yeah, there you go. Exactly. Yeah, I thought you were joking. So it'd be nice, because it's not obvious at all unless you can read the hieroglyphs. I'm glad she can, but we can't. So it'd be nice if she could do that for us. Thank you.
Also, very quickly, while I have you all here, Joe and Aaron talked about the supposed
the
wooden
plane.
that was found, quote, in one of the chambers.
You know, there's a bunch of weird stuff.
Skipping it.
Chambers you are speaking of, but I believe that you, Joe, are talking about the Sakara bird.
There we go.
This lovely little bird, modeled after a falcon, is
So
made...
when you look at this and people think that it could be a model for a plane, once again, if they modeled this after a plane because either they had planes or the aliens had planes, then my question is, why are you making it of wood? Unless it's like a toy, but you know, if they were this advanced, then I would expect us to find it made of plastic or metal. But whatever, it's a toy. And at least the way I understand it, when you look at it from the side, you see the little eye and you can recognize the beak. Yeah, that's a bird. But when you look at it from the top, it actually does look like a plane. And then there is something that's to do with the tail that I'm going to present in a second. Let's see. I don't remember if she addresses that. Let's have a look.
Made out of sycamore wood and was mounted onto a stick. It was discovered in 1898 during excavations at Saqqara in the tomb of Pa-di-Imen and dates to around 200 BCE. We don't know what the Saqqara bird's official purpose was. It could have been a ceremonial object because falcons were representations for particular ancient Egyptian deities like Horus, but it could have also been a toy, or even a masthead on a sacred boat for a religious festival.
For me, it's a toy. Also because when archaeologists say that it's ceremonial, it's archaeologist speech to mean we don't know what it was used for. Just so you know. Every time you hear an archaeologist, and at this point some historians too, they tell you, and these bracelets that were ceremonial, and this helmet that is particularly big, ceremonial, and this sword that is different from usual, it's a little heavier, ceremonial. Ceremonial just means we haven't got a clue what that means, because we haven't found inscriptions, we haven't found literary sources, we haven't found evidence, stelae, murals, inscriptions, paintings, nothing like that. No one tells us, we don't know. Ceremonial sounds better than saying we don't know. Just so we are clear on how ceremonial works when it comes to these things. That's why I'm usually that annoys the heck out of me. Nothing against that, of course, but I know it's used. It's that, and then when archaeologists say copper alloy, it pisses me off because I'm like, could you tell me if it's bronze, if it's tin bronze, if it's arsenical bronze, if it's freaking brass or orichalcum? Could you tell me what it is? No, they have to say copper alloy. And then you told me nothing at that point. Yeah, I understand copper is in there and there is something else, but if I don't know what the constituents are, I know nothing about that object. So there is that. Thank you, Louise. I appreciate that. Anyways, yeah, let's have a look at this falcon, I think she said. Yeah, orichalcum, I know. But believe it or not, the Romans did use the term orichalcum. I know it's in Skyrim and it's the orcs that use orichalcum. But the Romans did use the word orichalcum. Some people translate it as mountain copper. It's possible that it was actually a type of brass. Yeah, so orichalcum is a thing. This, however, is an orifalcon, as Empu says.
Some people have seen this bird and suggested that the ancient Egyptians had knowledge of aerodynamics, which would place the scientific development of these principles centuries earlier in the historical timeline. This is yet another object that people use to claim that ancient Egypt developed the first aircraft. Sorry to burst your...
Yeah, I mean, knowledge of aerodynamics because you are representing a bird in wood doesn't make sense. We have seen birds since, like, literally the birth of mankind. In fact, how many of us have wished we were birds? I think this is something we could, if prehistoric people could write, which would make them historical, but if prehistoric people could write, I think that that's something we would have found, either in poetry or just regular imagination. I can just imagine Paleolithic children pretending to be birds, yeah. But that doesn't mean that they had knowledge of aerodynamic in the modern sense, in the engineering sense. So yeah, I agree with her with that. Of course, birds are aerodynamic, but I think usually when people say that, is they say they had knowledge of aerodynamics. So I think we know that they mean that they had that same knowledge that we have from an engineering perspective when we design aircrafts, cars, planes, rockets, and whatnot.
Bubble yet again, but there is no evidence of this, and this little guy isn't even capable of flight. It's just too heavy and unstable. Researchers at the Institute of
Look at
Aerospace
that.
Technology, Bremen, conducted a computational fluid dynamics simulation
Love
based
it.
on a 3D scan of the bird back in 2023. And the results showed that the bird demonstrates, quote, no ancient knowledge of aerodynamics. Its glide properties aren't sufficient, the center of mass is off, and the lift distribution across the wings means it would just roll uncontrollably. Though I do have to admit that, yes, looking at the
Yeah, look
Sakara
at
bird
that.
from above, it very much does look like a plane.
You know, it reminds me, well, yeah. You know what it reminds me of? The old school planes from World War One. That's what it reminds me of. Doesn't it? It needs the little, how do you say elica? Damn it. How do you say elica? Well, maybe Fabbro, because you're Italian. How do you say elica? Damn it. You know, when they have a goes like this at the very front, like a biplane, yeah. Un biplano, a helix, thank you. Yeah, like a helix. That's what I, it does. I mean, it doesn't look like it. I give you sit here, and then you've got your little goggles. Something like that. Yeah, a propeller.
But, in my opinion, so would many other basic carvings of birds. So there you have it.
Okay.
Answers.
Well, the only thing she didn't mention it. So the only thing I can see that we would have to address is why they gave it this kind of ending. Because I mean, I haven't seen a single bird with a vertical looking. Although then again, when you look at it from this side, it looks less like a plane. If you look at it from this side, it looked more like a plane, the end tail of a plane. But yeah, when you look at it from the side, it looks more like a fish. Well, I guess, I mean, maybe you wanted people to be able to hold it. That could be out. Maybe it's a grip, like for a child, so the child can go like this. Maybe. I mean, that would make sense. Definitely makes more sense than thinking that this is a plane from World War One. So that's my take on it. That's why I think this is like this. That's what I'm saying. That's my take. It's my take. You say it's a segnavento, maybe. So like to see the wind direction, maybe. But I don't know if it would move. It depends how heavy it is. We would have to look at the specs for that. I do think it's probably a toy. Yeah, I think it's a toy. You know how many toys the Romans had and even bought or produced in wood and other materials, and then even bronze, and then they brought them back to their kids when they did have kids. And in general, the population, yeah, toys been around for a while. It's a flying fish. Oh, okay, it's basically that's Super Mario. Yeah. But yeah, no. Anyways, I did like the video. I do want to show you, however. Let me see the very ending.
These reaction debunking videos, let me know in the comment. Big thank you to all of my patrons over on Patreon. If you like the channel, you want to help support the channel.
Yeah, she's got a Patreon. Since we did watch her video, let me see if she has it linked as a professional courtesy. I'm just going to show her Patreon now, since, I mean, I did make content thanks to her. And she's got 100 members. And then, yeah, you can join. This is her Patreon and what it looks like. Very nice. Thank you for that, Professor. I do want to show you now, just to have an idea and see where we stand. I liked the video. Let's have a look at some of the comments. Let's have a look at some of the comments to see how people react to this. Is what I would like to do now. Professor, yeah, I think she's a professor, yeah. For instance, the bird was actually a hood ornament. Don't care. Hieroglyphics of helicopters, that's crazy. Moving 200-ton granite bricks of wooden rollers, then lifting them 400 feet up. That's perfectly normal. I see what this person is saying, but I think it's a false equivalence at this point. Simply because, as I was saying, we don't know how certain things were done. And personally, I think when it comes to at least long-form transportation, boats were involved. Yeah, the lifting part, it is difficult, but just because we don't know, it doesn't mean that now it's okay. It's just it automatically, well, it must be helicopters because we don't know how they built the pyramids. It's a little bit of a non sequitur. Yeah. I heard a joke. Why do women make the best archaeologists? They are great at digging up from the past. Goodness gracious. Let me see. Oh my gosh, did you check if it's in Zahi's book? Come on, Professor. You gotta like that. I like that one. You gotta like that one. That's the problem. Sometimes, maybe she didn't see it. Maybe she didn't see it. But there is also the possibility, because this does happen, that when you have sides, then you never criticize your own sides, which is something I don't. But I don't want to put it out there. Who knows? Maybe she didn't see it. Birds don't have vertical. Birds don't have vertical tails. Yeah, I mean, of course they mean vertical. 122 replies. I swear, 110 of these are correcting the spelling and calling him out for it. I'm telling you right now. That's how. Well, let's do more proportional. Probably 85. My guess is 85 of these comments are telling the guy vertical with the asterisk. That's what I think. But yeah, no. I mean, as I explained, I think I understand. I agree, Mr. Jess Mills. But my explanation to it is that it was used so that the kids could hold it and go like, "Wow, I'm a bird. I'm a bird." That's what I think. But yeah, now watch one of you here in chat find the one bird that actually does have a vertical tail, because you're lovely like that. I know you will find it just to prove my statement wrong, and consequently Jesse as well. I'll be waiting for that. Most archaeologists are still claiming the pyramid was a tomb. Yeah, I mean, once again, what does laughing have anything to do? Then what is your position? If your position is that we need to do more research and see if there are other usages, fine. But if your position is that it was a power plant, then, I mean, you're in no position to laugh at that point, I'm sorry to say. Archaeologists was never conspired to distort the truth. In ancient Egypt, stone workers would distort the truth by recarving or plastering over old hieroglyphs. That's not how you spell hieroglyphs. People have been lying for a long time. I mean, it is true, but then again, you have to learn to you have to learn to look at case by case. Up to this point, I do not see any reason. She didn't push any politics. She didn't say anything strange. And when it comes, I know that some people complained about her attitude, but it didn't bother me. I don't know about you guys. But then again, if it bothered you, then don't watch her. You know, it's simple. But yeah. The thing about Joe Rogan is, why is he wildly popular? Is he lets people come on his podcast and talk. I get it, but then again, I understand bearded chess, but what is the counter argument to not let people talk? It's his podcast after all. If you don't like it, don't watch it. Glad you were finally able to translate the hieroglyphs on your arm. Oh, because of the way she put it, man, this is a bit of a burning. Yeah, I think yeah. Archaeologists aren't rich, but if they want to work funds to support their studies, they must observe rules. That is unfortunately true. It's a case by case, though, country by country. Once again, let's see. Thanks for your learned explanation. So they liked that. Is that actually how you do? Maybe it is the way you spell hieroglyphs, and I'm the one full of it. We'll see. I'm happy to be corrected differently from some people. Finally, an archaeology calmly disarming ancient aliens with facts and flashlight. Okay, and she liked that. And she replied, no. Okay. Yeah. Let's see. Could build pyramids, but couldn't adequately cover over some hieroglyphs. Amazing. Once again, a false equivalence. Yeah, they could build the pyramids. Totally. But just because someone can build the pyramids, it doesn't mean that, I mean, you've got, even in ancient Rome, they could build amazing things, but yeah, some stuff collapses, some statues have lost it. I mean, you could use this against the Romans and the Greeks, and you could say it must be aliens because, wow, they could build these amazing monuments, but they let the nose and the arm and the leg of this statue fall. I wonder how that happened. It's the same thing. Yeah. Yeah, stuff falls apart. This stuff is thousands of years old. It's impressive that it stayed as it was. Yeah, let me check the super chat to make sure I didn't skip any. Let's have a look. All right. Thank you, by the way, for the support, guys. I really appreciate it. Let's start from the bottom. Admit it. Stargate SG-1, disclose it already. Well, I love Stargate SG-1. I do. It was fun. I used to watch it a lot. It was great. Ever hear of the Tartara theory? No, I haven't. And I think I read everything else. Yeah, I read everything else. Yeah, but SG-1 was good. I used to watch that in the 2000s. Am I right? That would make it 25 years old if I'm right. Let's see. Yeah, Joe Rogan, Zaki Hawass denied the existence of the King's List. Yeah, he did. Unless he didn't understand once again. I'm not going to read all of them. I just want to have an idea. Yeah, look at this guy. You didn't debunk anything. You provided an explanation for something that a couple of people commented on in a casual conversation. True. You should also take note much of what educated people learned about the ancient world was merely theories, since much of it has been proven wrong over the years. Yeah, your education was not free or mistakes either. I don't know what that has anything to do. Hi.
Hello, am I interrupting?
No. Come in.
Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody.
Hi.
How you doing?
Oh, I got cheese, guys. I got some cheese.
I
got
actually
some
did
cheese.
make dinner too, but I didn't want to just bring you up the whole thing.
What dinner did you make?
It's like I forgot what it's called, but it's noodles, lo mein, I think. It's noodles.
Ooh.
It's noodles, and it has broccoli, carrots.
Yeah, I love lo mein.
cashews.
I love lo mein.
Yeah, and it has like this. It's like a soy sauce. It's like a mix. It's like a soy, chili sauce, rice wine vinegar.
Nice, man. I'm
And,
looking
like-
forward to that when I'm done with the
Yeah.
with the live stream.
Yeah, it was really good. Hi everybody, how are you doing? I'm like repping Tennessee orange today.
Yeah.
It technically isn't it hockey season or is it not hockey season?
No idea, but I'm all set for tonight's dinner. I'm all set.
I was just cutting some sharp cheddar. Benjamin, that's funny. That's a cute name as well. Benjamin, that's fun. Rice wine vinegar for the win. Yeah, for sure. And Nerfy Moist Destroyer, hello. Saint Sir Nicholas, of course. The Llama, hello the Llama. Dream Heart Cat, everybody. I'm good. Irish color approved. Thank you. Yes, I love that. I just finished it's not the last book, but it's the last book that's currently out of the series that I'm reading that's set in Ireland. It's called The Boys of Tommen. And it's set in Cork. Apparently you're Rizzo the Rat.
Oh, I don't know what that is, but I got the cheese, so I'm
Hair
good.
battle, yeah. His is longer than mine though.
Yeah, mine is longer, but
Which
yeah,
is-
hers is prettier.
Oh, shucks, babe.
What were you saying?
I don't know. Formaggio, yeah.
Formaggio in Italian, yeah. Formaggio. Actually, you spelled it correctly. Maybe you are Italian then.
Whose show is this again? I don't even know anymore.
You both look great. Thank you very
Thank
much,
you, yeah.
Aristotle. I appreciate that. Thank you. It was funny, someone commented under one of the videos that I made about Asmongold, that I
Yeah.
was reviewing his takes and whatnot.
Yeah.
And because on the thumbnail, you see both me and him, we both have long hair. Someone said 70% of this thumbnail is just hair.
Yeah.
Which I thought was...
Can I tell them about tomorrow?
Yes. Are you sure?
Why?
We don't want to. We never want to say where we go.
Not where we go, but what it is.
Oh no! Yeah, of course. Yeah, totally.
No, so you know how on Wednesday was Raf's birthday?
Yeah.
Tomorrow's my birthday.
Yeah, birthday girl.
So we're both Geminis, which
Yeah.
is, I'm very happy that it works out very well, but it could have not happened.
Yeah, I don't believe in astrology, so I think it's nonsense. But yeah,
You're probably right, but you know. Thank you so much.
happy birthday for
Thanks,
tomorrow.
everybody.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate that. She got a nice Lego set
Oh my!
for her birthday.
Oh,
You should
no.
tell them.
King over here. He got me Lego Rivendell, as you guys probably know. I've talked about it before.
Yeah.
But he got me Lego Rivendell, and I'm nearly done with it. It's like I think there's 46 packages of Legos. Like
46.
yeah, 46.
Holy moly.
Yeah. That's a lot of packages right there, ain't it?
Yeah.
Hello.
Sorry.
I know, funny. Anyways, I'm almost done with it. I'm on pack 40.
Okay, so just the
Yeah.
last, yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm putting in. Oh, thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody. It's so nice. Dave B, Veronica Tash, Benjamin. Yeah, Lego was so good. They made one for the Shire as well, which I want to do at some point, and they made one for Pareidolia, which is like the Eye of Sauron.
Yeah.
And the next one that I want to get though is the.
Maybe one of the Star Wars ships.
We're watching Star
We're
Wars.
watching Star Wars.
We're watching. I asked him to watch Star Wars with me because I wanted the excuse to make more Lego.
And I'm like, yeah, what is it called? Millennium Falcon.
Yeah, and I tried to ask him before, like, if he wanted him. He was like, I don't like Star Wars.
No, it's not true. I never said that. It's not true. I do like Star
But
Wars.
you weren't like super into it.
No.
But now we watched episode 4, 5, and 6, and now we're getting into what's the first one of the prequel, Last Hope, A New Hope. I think we're on that one, A New Hope.
Yeah. Yeah, we started with 4. Yeah, 4, 5, and 6,
Lego
exactly.
One
Yeah.
Piece was released. Oh, I didn't know that.
One Piece, wow.
You know, in the anime.
Yeah, of course.
Oh man. Thank you guys. Well, the thing is, I never played Lego as a kid.
I did.
The Phantom Menace is the first one of the prequel. Oh, it might be the Phantom Menace. I might be.
Maybe it's
skipping.
Phantom. Yeah. I used to play Legos as a child, but it was the medieval Legos. So back in the day when I was a child, Lego hadn't rebranded to include all the famous movies and stuff like that, which I think it was a fantastic strategic move, by the way, for Lego to revitalize from the marketing department. But back in the day, we had these medieval Legos, and I absolutely loved them. Everyone liked them.
Yeah.
In my primary school, elementary.
I bet for sure.
So yeah, I had like the little knights in armor with plate. They were
Yeah.
great.
So, we watched I get the actual names of them confused. So we watched 4, 5, and 6 first because I keep seeing people talk about like the order. I wanted to watch them in like publication order.
Right.
So we have Disney Plus. So I did 4, 5, 6, and now we're doing what is it 1, 2, 3?
Yes, I think
is
so.
it's 1, 2, 3. So the one about Anakin when he's a kid and hit the backstory of everything.
Yeah, I remember
And then
watching
after
that.
that, I know a lot of people don't like the new ones.
Right.
But I'm still gonna watch the new ones for fun.
Yeah, sure. I mean, just to complete it. And then I'm telling you, I want to do, because of how much Star Wars we're watching with the Jedi Knights and whatnot, I really want to do a playthrough of one of my favorite Star Wars related video games, which is Knights of the Old Republic for the original Xbox. And yeah, we're going to play that. We're going to do a playthrough.
I'm gonna play Lego Star Wars.
And yeah, sure.
Because I actually did, funny enough, when I was a kid, I didn't build Lego,
Mm.
but I did play Lego Lord of the Rings. I played Lego Harry Potter. I don't think I played Lego Star Wars because I didn't care.
Mm-hmm.
But now I'm definitely going to.
Yeah, for sure. In People's Based, yeah.
Based.
I mean, Knights of the Old Republic, the first and the second, they're both phenomenal. They're kind of a little bit precursors of Mass Effect. So if you like Mass Effect, those are great. And because they are in the universe, of Star Wars universe, it's a match made in heaven. I mean, in the cosmos.
Right,
Yeah.
So what have y'all been talking about today? Did y'all talk about Joe? Good old
Yeah,
Joe?
we watched this video by this archaeologist that she responded to Joe Rogan a little bit, this archaeologist here. And I was just reading some of the comments just to get an idea what people were saying. And then once we're done with this, we still have a few other things to check out.
Okay, well, I won't keep you.
No problem.
I'm
But
gonna
thank you.
go.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm gonna go play the Switch.
Go play the Switch too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bye everybody. Bye chat. Bye YouTube. Bye Twitch. Bye love.
Bye,
Do you have
thank you.
everything? Need anything?
No, I'm good. And yeah, once I'm done, I think I'll just go and get that lo mein.
Yeah, and I'll put it in the fridge.
And does it need to be? Yeah, I guess.
How long are you? How much longer are you?
Probably another hour
Yeah,
or
it needs
so.
to go in the fridge.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Bye everybody. Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Right, thank you. We're gonna do some gameplay together on Twitch. So we're gonna start playing some games together. We were thinking of starting maybe with one of the Heroes of Might and Magic, and we could do a co-op. And we play maybe as evil, so I could do Necro and she could do Inferno, and then we could try and defeat the AI on a scenario, something like this. But we could do it together, so we would have my my camera and her camera, and then we just play the games. We'd like to do that. We did a little bit of Diablo 4 together. It's in one of the VODs already, but we thought we could do that for some games. It could be fun. Maybe we could even do some... I mean, she doesn't really like Valheim. Perhaps I can convince her to play some Conan Exiles. We'll see. That could be fun. Like a gaming couple. Dragon Age was the other BioWare games. Dragon Age Origins is my favorite of the series, and it still remains one of my favorite video games of all time when it comes to the dark RPG. Here's another funny one. So you're not a helicopter or plane expert, got it. What does that have anything to do with it? She's talking about ancient Egypt and archaeology, so kind of a funny way. Just say you disagree. I think that would be better. And let me see. Okay. After reading the comments, I'm disappointed by the high level of negative reaction and personal slides to your eloquent, learned explanation. Keep the faith. Why attack Joe Rogan? Is not the one coming up with this. It's his guest. That's kind of what I was saying. Although then again, it's not an attack. Man, if they think that this is an attack, wait until they watch Professor Dave. Because she was very mild. I'll be honest with you. She was very mild. The nose ring immediately discredits you. Yeah, again, I don't like nose rings on men or women. But then again, people could say that about me. The long hair immediately discredits you, and it does it? Not really. You can just disagree with the fashion choice. That's totally fine. As I say, I don't like tattoos and I don't like rings. The only thing I do like is the earring. I do have an earring here. I do have still have it. But just on the left. But it's kind of strange that people use that as a... I think this person just doesn't like what she was saying. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, it's mixed. She's getting people that are mad and people that like her. So I say, fine. Yeah. I want to see one thing. I want to test one thing. I knew it. Because people use this one with me. Let's see. Thank you for your learned explanation. Having been to Egypt, blah, blah, blah. While I never personally believe there were evidence of modern technology you could have done without the condescension, since the most modern eyes, those images do look amazingly like what Joe's and Aaron were discussing. I agree that they do, but was she condescending? I didn't think she was. Yeah, you liked her, Luis? No, I mean, if you think she's condescending, I think I can be more condescending than her, if I have to be honest with you. I think she was fine. Yeah, actually, only one that I could find. But it's not the only one that was complaining about their approach. But then again, I don't think they probably have a very low bar when it comes to what they expect from the responses to these kind of things. I think she was being a tiny little bit theatrical at the beginning to be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I have to do this. That's what people are complaining about. But it didn't look like it was said with vitriol, which sometimes it is, and it's annoying. It looked like it was said with like a bit of a joke. At least that's how I saw it. What do you guys think? To me, it looked like she was trying to be funny. That's what I thought. At least that's how it spoke to me. But anyways, I think it'd be nice to actually have her. I'll have to ask her if she wants to come on the show one day, and we can talk a little more about this, and maybe we can try and talk. She can answer a couple of questions that I have. You subscribed? Good. Very nice. And we could do that. And then I could write down a couple of questions for her, since I'm not able. I've studied the history, but I'm not able of reading Egyptian, and she can. So I think it would be great to ask him, what's that? What does that mean? What does that mean? What about this one? Why is this one like this? Like that, it could be interesting to do that. So we'll see. It's true. Yeah, it wouldn't have taken that long. So yeah, I think it comes from frustration, but the way she exerted that, it didn't rub me wrong. But I guess some people do get rubbed wrong. I think the people that get rubbed wrong by this is because maybe they have watched people that are extreme about it for instance, Professor Dave. And so maybe now they're a little bit on the defensive, like, what, if I don't agree or if I don't even understand what mainstream archaeology's stance is on something, then that doesn't make me an idiot. And it's true, it doesn't make you an idiot. It's always important to stay balanced. It's fine to move a little bit on the side if people are being insane about some stuff, like I've been a little combative with some people with what they've said. So I'm not trying to say that, okay, but I think it's important to still preserve a balance and only answer strongly against people that are being imbeciles or idiots or like aggressive or toxic. But maybe if someone is just honestly asking, then you shouldn't flex your degree and tell them, well, you understand nothing. Do you even understand what I'm presenting? Because that's condescending, it's obnoxious, but it's not her case. So I don't have a problem with her. Good stuff. All right. So we were talking a little bit about the tomb of Seti I, KV 17. So not the temple that we have discussed with the hieroglyphs, but the tomb. And what I wanted to show you is that this is part of the basis of my answer to, for instance, the Afrocentrist community, among others, when they were talking about the real and true color of the Egyptians. Now, given this is a lot more interesting and deep than the skin tone of a population. In fact, if anything, that's one of the least interesting aspects of an ancient civilization. It's just that it's unfortunately a battlefield for war and within the culture war, and therefore that's why it's often brought up. But today I don't necessarily want to focus on that too much. I'll present a couple of things, a couple of points, but I do want to discuss the broader point, which can be used when talking about preservation of pigments in both the Bronze Age, Iron Age, all the way up to classical antiquity, and how color and pigments react to exposure to the weather, but also, unfortunately, manumission and intervention of external sources, including us, human beings. So, when I said very early on, as I was showing you a little bit about this study, which once again is from the University of Florence, for you who are interested. It was here, the Department of Architecture, University of Florence, Italy. The reason why you have a connection between the tomb of Seti I and the University of Florence is the same reason as to why you have the same connection with France. Louvre, in fact. And that's because if you look at this image on the right, you will notice that this is the map, the 2D map of the tomb of Seti I that we've just discussed. And as you see, there is a staircase, and so you enter, and as you go into section F to section G, and you go up the staircase as you are exploring the tombs, then you'll notice that in this zoomed in picture, you will notice that on both sides of these walls, the walls are covered with artistic representations and pictorial representations and art. And two plates, we could say, were removed by archaeologists. One was sent to the Florence Egyptian Museum, and it is found there right now. And the other one was sent into the Louvre Museum and can be found and examined there. And that's why you have this connection. Now, what's interesting about this, it is what it is. I mean, when it comes to, if we go into the idea of why certain pieces are found in certain museums, and then we discuss the legitimacy of some of the ways in which these pieces were acquired, it could be an entire different topic for a completely different video, so I'm not going to go into that. Let's just deal with the fact that elements were removed and these elements were transported. And unfortunately, at least when we talk about the one in Italy, these were not preserved well at all, which is really, really a shame. Look at this. On the right, we see the original photograph of the current conditions of this drawing that we see here. And you will notice that, they have got black hair. Both the queen and the pharaoh have got black hair. Their skin is very dark. They've got some gold. We see some green, some blue. We can see all of this. The one on the left is how the original colors would have looked. Thank you, Goatee. I appreciate that you like the shirt. Blue hair and blue horns on the crown. So basically what's happening here, which is one of the main items of debate and clash with the Afrocentric community when I made several videos on ancient Egypt, is that one of the main points of debate is that they say, and they do it for the skin, I'm not interested in the skin right now, but in general, the main point of debate and argument is that, yeah, these are ancient, and so the colors fade, and so whatever color we see, the original would have been darker. The reality that has been proven without any shade of a doubt by this study, I will give you a link, is that in this specific case with the tomb of Seti I, and there are several other occasions in which this happens, not just in ancient Egypt, but also in classical antiquity in the Mediterranean basin, is that oftentimes the opposite happens. Pigment darkens with time. Darkens with time. So it depends. There is no, if you hear an umbrella statement, pigment it fades away, so the colors were always darker, that's wrong. In this case specifically, blue became black. Now, if we look at this, and we really have to say it, fine. If you really want to talk about the ethnicity, whatever, yeah, the queen had dark skin. Totally. I would consider this a brown skin. So, yeah, sure, great, fantastic. As you know, there is a massive, a veritable cornucopia of different skin tones because, in my worldview, my position, ancient Egypt was a multi-ethnic civilization. They had people with different skin tones, as we see the way they represented themselves in art and how they represented other people. By the way, in this specific tomb, there is the very famous, some say infamous, representation of not only themselves, but also the Nubians, who are clearly black, and different from the regular Egyptian, whose skin is instead a mixture of brown and red, if we want to look at the pigments used. But do remember, oftentimes the pigments, the way they look, the way they look now, are darker because of the aging. And then we see Asiatics. Sometimes we see Romans, and Romans look European. The Romans look just European. Some have like kind of very fair skin. Brown hair has been shown as a representation of Romans. Black hair has been shown as a representation of Romans. So if you cut my hair, I could have been a good representative of a Roman when it comes to both, in some cases, when it comes to both skin and complexion. But sometimes they have a lighter brown as well that's shown in Egyptian representations of Romans. And then you have the Asiatics tend to be very light skin, and so are the Libyans. And you can recognize the Libyans because they have an ostrich feather on their head, ostrich being a connection that the ancient Egyptians recognized with the Libyans specifically. And so we will see all of this. I'll show you some of this stuff. Olive is a good way to represent it because olive, when we say olive skin, it goes from a very light brown that, and not even brown sometimes, but it can go from a color of a tanned man that you often see in Spanish people, in some Italians, in some Greeks. You have a tanner white man that would be included in olive sometimes, particularly if you look at some undertones. Then you go light brown all the way up to relatively dark brown. It's still within the umbrella classifier that we define as olive. And it is ridiculous that I had to deal, when I was talking about this, with people in the comments coming from the Afrocentric community that were telling me, oh, have you ever seen anyone who looks like an olive? Olives are green. And I'm like, you have no idea how classifiers work, because if you did, then you would apply the same, you wouldn't say this, because then you would have to apply it to white wine, which isn't white, but it's golden yellow. It's ridiculous. It's a classifier. We do it all the time in all sorts of languages. And it's how it is. It's just that white wine sounds better than yellow wine, so we call it white, even though anyone with an eye can see that that's clearly a golden yellow, right? Likewise, some people classify some birds as blue, even though it's an illusion. But then again, regardless, like crows, for instance, were described as blue by the Norse, although in that case it could have a magical connotation, because blue for in Old Norse has a connotation to something exotic. In fact, black people were called blue by the Norse. I don't think it's because the Norse literally thought that Africans or black Africans were blue. It's silly. It's a silly counterattack to an idea and a usage of a term that is being used and has been in use for all sorts of time. Olive is a perfect classifier for skin tone. But I don't want to focus on skin tone right now. I do just want to focus on this because the study shows phenomenal evidence that demonstrates that color and pigment can darken with time. You can even see it with the naked eye. And they did not use the naked eye. They used all sorts of for example, technology, like for instance the XRF spectra and a lot of other stuff that I've already actually described in details in one of my videos. Now it's been a while since I read it when it comes to the technical aspects of it. But yeah, it is spectroscopic analysis, and and it's proven. A lot of the art that we see was lighter. A lot of the art that we see, the pigments were lighter in this scenario. Now, let me see if I can show you. There is something that I wanted to show you when it comes to the original, because they do talk about that. Let me see if I can find it. One moment, please. Yeah. Construction technique. Yeah, the Valley of the Kings. Yeah, I love the names, by the way. Yeah, there we go. Look. To connect to what the archaeologist that we talked about was saying about how you prepare these walls before you start inscribing the hieroglyphs, we see the figures were first sketched in red, as I was telling you. The final outlines were then traced in black by another artist to create the final and correct guide for the sculptor. A coating, thin, gypsum, or is it Gibson? I don't know how to read it. You'll have to help me with this. A coating, thin, gypsum-based preparatory layer was given to ensure a homogeneous background from the chromatic and absorption point of view. The high technical quality of the tombs of Thebes, also due to the excellent quality of the rock, a fine, homogeneous and compact limestone, ensured a good preservation of the paintings observed by many travelers of the past. So already we see that someone in chat actually earlier on was saying, how are they so perfectly sketched? Because they prepare them. See, I don't know how you read it. I don't know how to read that. Is it gypsum? Okay, gypsum then. Apologies for that. I didn't know. J sound. Thank you. Appreciate that. So I'm just going to... Where is it? A coating thin gypsum-based preparatory layer. There you go. I corrected it. Thank you. I don't know how you read it. I know what it is in Italian, but in English. And the only times I've run into this word was when playing Civilization. Thank you, Luis. Appreciate it. We got a super chat. Thank you. And Batman, if the missus likes metal, I recommend the Lords of the Rings, but it's metal made with AI. Also, happy month of Sacred Heart of Jesus. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. And let her know. We'll definitely check it out. Let me double check that there aren't any other super chats that I missed. No, I didn't. Okay, good. One moment. Live chat. Lovely. Yeah. Yeah, look, the main in situ causes of degradation of these architectures are infiltration of water with the consequent transport of salts, detachment of and fall of fragments, as we were discussing, but also cracks due to the mechanics of the rock layers. They reuse as dwellings, barns, hermitages, warehouses can have caused different transformations over the centuries, from carbon black deposits of lamps and fireplaces till the cuts in the rock walls. Yeah, and then there is the whole section where I remember that they discussed that, and as I say, I did read the letters where they say that they can. Yeah, look at this, exactly this. This is. I want to read this last thing. Giambattista Belzoni discovered the tomb in 1817, but in reality it was discovered by Zahi Hawass because he discovered everything. But anyways, and he immediately realized its importance, describing it as the principal open quotes, the principal, the most perfect and splendid monument in that country, close quotes. He did make drawings and wax casts, that already, of many decorations and staged an exhibition in England in 1821. The conservation conditions were good, and many of the early visitors said that the colors were as fresh as if the painters had just finished their work. This is mind-blowing. The plates attached to his publication document some of the removed reliefs still in place. The opening through began a long degenerative process since the following year, when a flood caused the fall of fragments from walls and ceilings. So similar situations happened in the Temple of Seti I as well. And when you read the... One more thing that I want to add to this is that there is something that happened, unfortunately, in ancient Egypt. And it's there was a practice that happened when there was a craze with tourists. And what they would do is that they would create wet paper casts of the hieroglyphs and also a lot of the art. So what that does is that they would take like a paper, damp it and put it on top of the wall, and that would take some of the pigments and kind of create a little bit of a carbon copy of it, and then they could sell it. This was done a lot, which was a disgrace, and that ruined a lot of these. So the preservation is different to the way it was. And some of the reasons, again, when we look at these, we may think it's because it's 1,000 years old. The reality is because of all the nonsense that happened in the last 200 years. And that also connects to one of the points that I was presenting during my counter-argument when I was discussing with some of my intellectual opponents on what the ancient Egyptians looked like. Because one thing that happened is that there is an image I'm going to show you right now, and then we'll close with this topic. We'll start the next topic. But I want to show you this image. And it's called, let me see, Tomb of Seti the First. Let me see if I can find it very quickly. If not, I can find it on my own. Yeah, there we go. And it takes us to this, from, as I say, the Tomb of Seti I. I'm going to give you a little presentation of this because it's fascinating. But before I do that, I do want to give time to the members now of the channel. I should have done it a little earlier, but I got a little involved, so I hope you don't mind. I want to very quickly now give space to the members of the channel to be able to share their opinions on chat. So you're going to give priority for about 30 minutes or so, maybe a little longer. And then we'll reopen the chat to everyone. So thanks again to all members. And sometimes there are memberships that are gifted during this moment. And if that happens and you're still watching and you're not a member, you could become a member today. So that would be lovely. I'm going to close the regular chat and just turn it into members only. Let's see who's going to be able to get the last message before this happens. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, Muppet. See who the winner is. I think the last one was Valentine, puppy, because yeah, it was Valentine. So Valentine, congratulations for your victory. I'm just going to show you here. So Valentine wins, and then the first member is David. So welcome to the members. It is your time now to ask all the questions you want, be part of the presentation, as a way to say thank you, of course, for your support. And as I always do, before we continue,
welcome to the inner circle.
How about that? Sometimes I use the demon voice. Sometimes I use the angel voice. Let me do a round 2, but this time with the angel voice. Welcome to the inner circle. All right, we've got to vote, guys. Which one is the best voice? The angel voice or the demon voice? We'll have to decide. I think they're both pretty cool. Let me open, in the meantime, while we think about that, let me also open another thing. So I'm going to give you a link for everyone to this specific paper. Oh no, this is a link to my, okay, I'll have to, I don't know what the, goodness gracious, this is not the link. I'll have to see if I can find the link in a moment, sorry. Before I do that, I wanted to open this, there you go. Right, so, 1 second. Metatron. Okay, there you go. Splendid. All right, let me turn these on so I can show you. Oh, the demon voice woke your kitty up. Sorry about that. The angel voice didn't. Okay, I see. All right, so. Yeah, we've got a lot to show. We've got a lot to show, ladies and gentlemen, in this section. 1 second, sorry. So, when we were talking about this, so this image is found in the tomb of Seti I, as I was describing, and it's an image that represents the way the ancient Egyptians saw themselves. So the guy on the right is an ancient Egyptian, this is an Asiatic, this is a Nubian, and this is a Libyan, okay? And I want to specify that this is a drawing that represents an image on the wall. This is not from ancient Egypt. I think it's kind of obvious if you look at it, but just to make sure that we understand each other, this is just a drawing made by an Egyptologist. What's interesting about this is that we're going to look at the original on the wall. I have it right here. Okay. So this is not the original, but this is the full image. Okay, this is a full image, and it was made. There we go. Because this, there we go. So in one of the clashes that I had with the channel, The King's Monologue, is that he said that I was using what he called minutoli. Minutoli is the name of the Egyptologist. Fake reproduction of what was represented on the wall, and he said that it was unforgivable. I would like to underline one thing, though. First, I have no ill sentiment against the King's Monologue, also because after I responded to him, he admitted that he was wrong and that I was right about this. Okay, so even though I'm showing you this, I do want to clarify that on this item of discussion, he still holds his strong beliefs and he disagrees with me, and that's fine. But when it comes to this, Minutoli's reproduction, he kind of came to see it my way. I kind of wanted to show you that. Now, Minutoli, one thing about Minutoli already that I want to discuss is the fact that Minutoli is an eyewitness. So he went, this is the original wall, I'm going to show you, there we go. So this is where we take all of this. This is where we take all of this. I've done an analysis of it, and I'm going to share it with you right now. One thing that I want to say about Minutoli that connects to what we were discussing today is that Minutoli went there before all the crazy degradation happened, is an eyewitness, and we've just discussed how vivid and well preserved the tomb was. We just read it. We read all the information about it. He had access to it before everything went to shit hit the fan, and then he drew, he had created the drawing, he commissioned someone to create the drawing, and he said, yes, that's a good representation, because he couldn't take the freaking wall and bring it home. Luckily, since people have done that, and he wanted to show it back home in Europe. So I believe Minutoli more than someone who looks at it now and draws conclusion, also because often these conclusions come from a place of culture and messages rather than whatever the heck, an actual analysis, an in-depth analysis of the data. So, having given that, let's have a look at the current situation with this section of the wall, right? And then let's see what we can learn from it as we correlate with this drawing. So, of course, when we look at the drawing, we see that there is a massive difference between what the ancient Egyptian, the average ancient Egyptian looks like. I would say that, I would go as far as saying that this is probably a typical representation of an ancient Egyptian of the Delta area, so the lower Egypt, the one that is closer to the sea and the Mediterranean, rather than a typical ancient Egyptian in Upper Egypt, which was bordering with Nubia, because that area, in my opinion, would have had a higher percentage of people that, even though they were originally Nubians, their forefathers, then their children in that area, they would have looked like a Nubian, not necessarily this level of black. This is just an example, of course, it's a stereotype. But stereotypes sometimes, even though they may not be descriptive of minutiae, they can still give you a general idea, just like the Romans telling us that Germanic people were blonde, rather, exception the ones in Scotland, they tell us they're redheads. Okay, I'm not saying that every single ancient German, we shouldn't say German, Germanic tribes, they were all copy-paste, every single one with blonde hair. But if the Romans give us that stereotype, it probably means that there was a higher percentage of Germanic people that had those phenotypic characteristics. And I think we can apply the same logic here. I think this is a typical inhabitant of the Delta. I'll get hatred for it, I don't care. And this is a typical inhabitant of Nubia, and maybe of some Egyptians, a certain percentage within the Egyptian population clusters in Upper Egypt, which bordered with Nubia, for obvious reasons. That could be also a representation of an Egyptian, but only there. And here, on the walls, we see a clear distinction, and we also see that the Libyans tend to be very fair-skinned. Now, according to the Afrocentric perspective, this is not a representation of the typical skin of a Libyan. Apologies for that. I don't know what happened there. I think it is. I personally, maybe not this milk white, but still, maybe kind of like me. Could be an idea. I think so. I think it would be a good representation. Now, let me go back to this. So, yeah, it's kind of destroyed a little bit, unfortunately. Let me see if you got... we wanted to ask something, or maybe we were talking about this, or maybe you agree, maybe you disagree. Yeah, angels can be terrifying, absolutely. The inner Muppet, always the inner Muppet. Yeah. They had feathers, they actually flew, maybe. That's amazing. Yeah, it's interesting stuff. You'll see. I just scratched the surface. There's a lot to say about this. Yeah. It's reasonable, I agree, yeah. Muppet Hour, yeah, it's Muppet Hour. All right, I'll bring you back in a second. All right, so what I do show in this section here is this. So, first, we need to try and understand which part of the wall we are looking at. And I think you can immediately recognize the black gentleman here, the Nubian, is over here. And then we need to find this guy. We need to find this guy. Now, what in this situation, and again, I'm not trying to diss the guy, he's right on many things, but in this he was wrong and he admitted it. He showed this section of the wall and he said, look, this is the Nubian. This is a bad representation of a Libyan, because if you look at the wall and you look what's right next to the Nubian, you can clearly see that this looks nothing like this, so Minutoli didn't know what he was doing with his drawing. This is a wrong interpretation, because even though Minutoli did find elements of people that were found on this wall, he didn't draw them in the same order as the wall. And you can see this because if I play it, give me a second, boom, this is where he got this guy, not here. And once you do this and you zoom in, as we will, and you identify it, you can immediately spot the ostrich feather, and I think it's actually a very good representation of what we see here. And here we see a bunch of Egyptians. Once again, do remember that, as we have proven with the study from the University of Florence, their colors would have been lighter. We can kind of even see it here a little bit. Do they look white? No, obviously. No one is saying that the Egyptians were white, but definitely they did not look like this either. Continuing. I think I do a little zooming in. There we go. So we zoom in, we recognize the blue a little bit here. It's just a shame that it's gone, so much of it, but we do recognize it. And yeah, I think there is no way that I think the skin, maybe that it went a little too light here, but still, this is not a brown man, this is not a black man, this Libyan is represented, and you can still see there is pigment for his beard, if that's what that is. Maybe not, maybe just a piece of the plaster, unfortunately, but whatever. Regardless, the tattoos are still intact, and that's another characteristic of this culture, by the way. And here, which is because again, another thing that I brought up on this video when I presented it was the fact that oftentimes it is also a matter of which picture are you using? Are they using flash? What kind of illumination is there? So this is why it's wrong to just show one image of a wall and call it a day. You need to show multiple. And if you do show multiple, then you will see that, yeah, this is kind of a pink skin tone. And you can recognize it, and there is no way that you can tell me that this guy was a black African. You can still see the pigment, it's there, and it's quite clear. But anyways, regardless of the ethnic part, which is, as I say, it's the least interesting and the least important when it comes to these things, it is fascinating. This looks a little bit black. It was blue, and in fact, you can still kind of see it a little bit. Here we go. And you can see the Asiatic in the drawing is the one that was kind of lightened a bit too much, but in the original we can still see the kind of complexion that he would have had, and we can still see the original red as part of his girth, what would you call it, apron that he was wearing here. Yeah, so yeah, this is part of the tomb, and then there is a lot that goes into this also. But yeah, so it's a fascinating section. It's a fascinating representation. But as a one last thing I want to say, yeah, this color is actually kind of similar, because do remember, this is what they look like now after the degradation and the darkening. So is it really so strange to believe that what Minutoli represented when he chose this specific tone wasn't what he actually saw? I can see this getting a little lighter and getting into this 100%. Give it 200 years, considering the studies that we have reviewed. I think I trust Minutoli. I do trust his eyewitness and expertise. The guy was an Egyptologist. Yeah. But Grandma told me, yeah, but then of course Netflix will bring Grandma, and here we are. Anyways, I kind of wanted to show this when it comes to the pictorial evidence, because I love the idea that there was so much color in the hieroglyphs, look at the blue ceiling in contrast with the yellow, and imagine how it would have looked with this when this was in period. It would have been phenomenal. And it kind of matches up with, if we want to leave ancient Egypt for a moment, with the kind of polychromy that we have in ancient Rome. So there is a video, if I can show you very quickly. 1 second. Let me see if I can find it very quickly. Found it. Okay. There we go. So in this video here that I posted a while ago, I was actually showing this. This is an original mural that is found in Pompeii in ancient Rome. And what's fascinating is not only, I mean, the state of preservation of the colors is nice, but imagine what they would have looked like in period, fresh and colorful. But it also gives us a perspective, a picture that freezes in time how they saw their world. And the way they saw the world, they saw a woman here. Is it a woman? Yeah. In their beautiful purples and yellows and what is this, a turquoise, and everyone is wearing colors. So stop with the freaking browns and blacks everywhere. But also look, their walls were painted. Their columns were painted. And as we see a statue, it is in full color. Even the clothes and the skin and the hair of the statue itself is in full color. This is one of the most beautiful aspects, I think, of classical antiquity, how everything was in color. And the visible traces are still there for us if you're interested enough to look, because we have this image of the columns being white, which is beautiful. I mean, Renaissance art did produce statues that were all white, columns that were all white. It is a style. It's just that it's not the style of classical antiquity, because the style of classical antiquity is Mediterranean polychromy. And look at this. You can still see red and green. Man, red and green. And then I see blue and yellow. This is like, wow, they really went full in. Also because remember, color is also, it's not just a representation of art, it's a representation of wealth. Because you got the money and you can show off not all colors at the same price. Yellow, for instance, is not too difficult to produce, but if you want green, particularly if you're dyeing garments, then you have to first dye it yellow and then do a second processing to get to green. When it comes to blue, it depends. There is cheap blue, there is expensive blue, there are various. Purple, man, you are Elon Musk of ancient antiquity. If classical antiquity, if you can afford purples. And so, like, yeah, color is also a representation of how wealthy and successful you are. So color has layers to it that give us access to also the socio-economic positions and realities behind the artist or the commissioning. Exactly, yeah. And so it speaks to us. And that's also one more reasons why we can see why the ancients would want to show off their colors. And when we look at the Augusto di Prima Porta, which is currently found in the Vatican museums, and I speak about it many times. So for the regulars of my streams, I can understand that you may be like, oh my gosh, not again. I understand, but Octavianus Augustus is my favorite, so I will never stop talking about him, about the guy. But yeah, I think I've seen this receiving all sorts of different possible interpretations. I think imagine how much this would cost. Like, you have to crush 10,000 seashells that are only found in a specific area of northern Africa. I think it would be where Tunisia is now, so former Carthage, maybe in Algeria in some areas, but generally speaking, I would say Carthage is one of the, and Libya maybe. Anyways, this was so expensive to produce that, yeah, he's an emperor. This is his power. In a way, it's a representation of his legacy. And then, yeah, even his armor. I don't know if the armor would have been in color, but maybe the statue could be. And as I often say, his eyes would have been blue or gray. Difficult to say because of translation issues with ancient Greek and Latin. I would have made his hair, definitely his hair was brown, but I would have made it a light brown. That would have been a good representation of his hair, because the Romans use a term in Latin, which is used, basically they have this term that represents blonde for the Germanic people, and then for him specifically, they add the term sub, which you could translate, like even today, it's like a sub something, like something that is a little underneath it. So it's not quite blonde, but kind of on that direction. That's how I think you can translate his hair, which would have been like a light, maybe even a very light brown. I'm happy to consider this. And do remember, as I often point out, that the arm is not original. His original right arm was holding a spear, business end to the ground. And that's, yeah, so this is what classical antiquity, the idea that we see this is more like the art in the Renaissance. Someone like a David, right, by Michelangelo, they would be full white because it's a representation of purity, and also it kind of dehumanizes the statue. I love it, by the way. I think it looks really good. But general, these kind of statues want to dehumanize it and perhaps go into a realm of a little bit of an uncanny valley, but strangely enough, one that I may find positive because I like it a lot. And so this looks like a demigod. And that's really what they wanted to recreate in the Renaissance, particularly with heroic art. And that we see that in armor as well. But classical antiquity, no. Ancient Greece, Rome, Egypt, all being civilizations that were nurtured by the Mediterranean basin. Now, for them, the statues needed to be lifelike. The statues were alive. So the emperor, if you stand in front of the statue of Octavianus Augustus, it's as if you are looking and beholding his countenance as if he were standing in front of you. In a way, in my opinion, is a connection to the idea of immortality. Because these statues are there and they will stay forever, at least in their opinion. They didn't. I mean, 2,000 years, it's impressive they're still standing. But they will stay forever in this state, which is the state of life. And that's the way the Mediterranean eye, in an artistic perspective, saw their representation in stone as they carved the people. So, yeah, they're two different approaches. And yeah, he was rich. Oh, the guy was rich. My gosh, the guy was rich. Yeah, so I love this about the Mediterranean cultures, and it is one connection, in a way, between cultures that are so different, because ancient Egypt being an African culture, Greece and Rome be European cultures, but still this was a point of connection. And it's, of course there is a point of connection. Look at this. Of course there is a point of connection because there is the Mediterranean Sea, which is a conduit of civilization, culture, and artistic expression. These civilizations continuously interacted with each other, they traded with each other, they learned from each other. As I was discussing the other day, the way the Romans and the Greeks built their minings, because they had 3 different approaches to mining for raw material. And one of their approaches was, for example, to go up a river, and then if they can find gold and silver inside the river, great. Sometimes they would follow a river up to a mountain, because that they found out, basically it's kind of like a statistic analysis. It's incredible that they could do that, but they could. They figured out where there was the highest likelihood of finding interesting materials that they could work with, whether it be iron, ore, or whether it be silver, gems and whatnot. And they noticed that if you follow a river, this is in the sources, Pliny the Elder is one of them that mentions this, but also Marshall, I believe. They could follow the river, then they would start digging horizontally into the mountain, and usually that would give them some interesting access to raw material. But sometimes, and they only did it with silver and gold, they would dig vertically down up to 200 meters under the ground. But in order to, when they did, and they only did it with silver and gold because it was expensive and it was dangerous, they could lose manpower, but they would do it for gold and silver. And what's interesting is that as they were going down these shafts under the ground, they would encounter several problems. They had to solve the problem of darkness. The way they did it is fascinating, because we are told by the sources that they would wear a candle on their heads. So a bit like modern day flashlight when we connect it to the helmet, the Romans and the Greeks did that already. Sometimes they would carry clay with a little, what do you call it, a wickle is it called, that you could ignite and produce a fire. They would do that. That's mentioned in the sources. That's how they would deal with darkness and still be able to use both hands to work. Fascinating. And they had to deal with oxygen, and the way they did it, they had a system that used candles that would be they would descend these candles in under the ground, and by the way the flame would move, they would know if they had enough oxygen or not. So they understood how to probe for airflow. Another thing that they had to deal with was heat, because the further down you go, I actually looked at a study that tells you specifically of how many degrees Celsius you increase the temperature by a certain set amount of meters that you go underneath. I don't remember the exact number, but it's been calculated. And even though the Romans didn't have the same solutions that we have today, because we can dig thousands, 2 or even 3, 4,000 meters under the ground with deep digging. The Romans were going 200 meters, but already when you go 150 meters, it's a problem with heat. And so the Romans had ways to address that in order to create artificial airflows and ventilation. They had systems to do that. And the last one that kind of connects to this, as I wrap up this discussion, was how they had to deal with water. Because as you go down, you could run into an underground river or a water table. And if that happens, it would flood the whole thing. And since when the Romans dug, they first dug vertically, but when they find ore, like silver, gold, then they start digging horizontally. I've been told that that's what you do in Minecraft. I don't know. But anyways, that's what they would do. But when they would dig horizontally, they would dig in a way that they had a little bit of space. And the sources tell us that the miners couldn't even sit. They had to dig laying on their backs and dig like this. Imagine the claustrophobic whatever. But of course, if they keep digging and then they get into an underground river, it could flood the whole thing. And so the way they solved that is by creating a mechanism that would, it's basically a machine, if you will, made of wood, iron and bronze, that could pump out water and push it up into the ground, and a significant amount of water if we are to believe the sources. And this machine was produced using a specific technique that the Romans learned from the Greeks and the Greeks learned from the Egyptians, that was called the Egyptian screw. And it was used to create this machine, this bronze screw was used to create this machine that could pump out the water. fascinating stuff. I don't even know how I got there right now. I kind of got lost into the source. But yeah, so there is I love when I look at this, honestly, and see how these ancient civilizations functioned. It's fascinating stuff. Oxygen is overrated. It's killing us. Well, yeah, it is poisonous up to, if you go up to a certain, yeah, it's right. Is poisonous the right word to use? Yeah, I think so. Absolutely, Lewis. I appreciate that you like the stream. Talking about the stream, how are we doing? Oh, doing great. Good stuff. Good stuff. Okay. All right. So what I would like to do now, just to have a little bit of a closing, if you will, is I would like to check out exactly what Joe Rogan said. So I'm going to react to the whole 5 minutes and 52 seconds from the Joe Rogan clip channel. But I'm going to do that on Twitch because I know I'm not going to get DMCA'd. So I'm going to put a link if you want to follow us over on Twitch, and do follow me because I play a lot of games. So don't be a Muppet. But before we talk about Muppets, I do want to give you that link to Twitch so you can come on over. And there we go. So Twitch. And let's see exactly his words, what he said. So we can, I think it's a good way to close the, double voice. No, thank you. There we go. Okay, so for anyone who wants to hop onto Twitch for the continuation of this wonderful live stream, and then we see what he actually said, and particularly his guest, because Joe Rogan, as I said, I addressed what Joe Rogan said a little bit, but I didn't tell you anything about what, like, the guest leans into it, and they're going to talk about the stuff. So, yeah, if you enjoyed the stream so far, see, Luis liked it, thank you. And, yeah, Joe, OG, it was great, it was fantastic, I'm glad you liked it. For everyone on YouTube, I want to very quickly... Here you are. Sorry if you don't have Twitch. Maybe you could make one. There could be an opportunity to do that. If not, don't worry about it. I understand. But before we do that, I do want to give chance to everyone else on YouTube to say hi. So I'm going to open and see who's going to write in the chat first in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Muppet. Okay, one moment, please. There we go. All right, so who's the winner? And also, I want to thank, I'll show that in a second, because someone just subscribed on Twitch, and I really appreciate that. So welcome. Thunderwing, my man. Really good, man. This guy is always, you're almost always number one. Appreciate that. I do want to say thank you to Frenchie Scheich, whom I think just jumped. Man, you just did a jump like this, and you jumped from here to here. Hi, Melanie, good to see you. Bappo, good to see you. And so you just jumped here and you subscribed. I really appreciate you subscribe using your Prime subscription. It's always an honor for me when people do that, because, I mean, there are so many Twitch streamers that, yeah, I really appreciate when you guys do that. Thank you very much. First time chat, a long time viewer. Fantastic. Oh, since Katori Shintoryu days when I was talking about karate, goodness gracious. So good to have you here. Thank you. All right, guys. So I am going to end the stream on YouTube now, but we're going to continue on Twitch. So I hope to be able to see many of you make the jump with the link over here. I hope that you make the jump, guys. It would be great to see you here. And for everyone else, thank you very much. I really appreciate for joining the stream, and I will see you tomorrow. And oh, you jumped. Woohoo! Melanie just jumped. Look at that jump. Where did you go? Melanie jumped from here. I'm going to line you. Let's see if I can do that. Melanie's just jumped. Almost. Can I align it? Boom. There she is. Melanie just jumped. Look at that. Look at the animation. Man, the things I do for you. The things I do for you, guys. All right, cool stuff. Jumping now. Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you very much. And yeah. All right, then. So let me just close this because we don't need this. We will react to that one. We reacted to this already. We will react to this one on Monday. And then we'll use this. That's great. Joe Rogan it is. So So let's see what they have to say. All right. Moving the chat. Wow, 90 viewers here. People are jumping. Fantastic. Okay, so thank you everyone on YouTube. Really appreciate. And I will see you on Monday for the next live stream, but tomorrow I'll post as usual. Thank you very much, and goodbye to everyone on YouTube. Bye bye. Ciao, ciao, ciao. Ciao, ciao, ciao. Ciao, ciao.